In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. One simple, timeless sentence that launches the entire Bible. But what if there's more to that origin story? What if an ancient, forgotten text exists that fills in all the mystery Genesis leaves untold? Today, we're diving deep into the Book of Jubilees, an ancient chronicle of creation and divine order. It reveals how heaven itself was structured when the angels first came into being and what cosmic events shaped the world long before Adam ever drew breath. But before we get started, if stories like this bring a sense of peace to your evening, consider liking this video and subscribing so we can stay connected. We'd also love to hear from you, where you're from and what time you're tuning in. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This is a journey into a book that was never meant to survive. Hidden deep within the caves of Qumran near the Dead Sea, wrapped in silence for nearly 2 millennia, lay a secret. A sacred manuscript kept from the world until the middle of the 20th century. This ancient text tells a version of the beginning you may think you already know, only filled with details that will surprise you. This is the Book of Jubilees, often called the Bible's lost twin. Imagine discovering a book that rewrites the opening chapters of Genesis. A book that not only claims to be older than Genesis, but even more authentic. A text where angels follow your every move, where time doesn't drift, but flows in precise 7-year cycles, where life on earth is governed not by seasons or stars, but by heaven's fixed calendar. This isn't myth or fantasy. This is the Book of Jubilees. Thanks to the Dead Sea Scrolls, this lost book has reemerged. It had disappeared from most of the Western world for more than 15 centuries. While Christian Ethiopia preserved it as sacred scripture, the rest of the world nearly forgot it even existed. Now, we can open its pages again, and what we discover inside is both strange and full of wonder. Inside Jubilees, we step into a world where angels relay sacred history directly to Moses on Mount Sinai. A world where Enoch, the ancient patriarch, studies astronomy at the feet of heavenly beings. A world where demons have names, duties, and cosmic functions. Where the universe operates on divine clockwork, and where human freedom exists, but only within tightly drawn boundaries. So who wrote this mysterious book? Scholars generally place its origins in the 2nd century BC, a time when Jewish identity stood in tension with powerful Greek influence. The author, whose name is lost to time, made a bold and radical claim that his book contained truth older, deeper, and more authentic than the Torah itself. Why then did Jubilees vanish from so many religious traditions? The answer may lie in its unbending worldview. Jubilees makes little allowance for flexibility or adaptation. Its calendar is forever fixed, exactly 364 days, 52 perfect weeks, with no leap years and no adjustments. Its laws are permanent, unchangeable, beyond human reinterpretation. And for religious communities that needed to grow and evolve with shifting times and places, that kind of rigidity became a problem. As a result, most Christian churches excluded Jubilees when deciding their official canon. Jewish rabbis, too, left it out of their scriptures. Only in Ethiopia did it continue as Holy Writ, read side by side with Genesis and Exodus as divine truth. For the rest of the world, it became a strange footnote, a mysterious path that was never taken. And yet, this book refuses to be forgotten. The ideas within Jubilees shaped the worldview of the Essenes, that radical desert community who hid the Dead Sea Scrolls. Its themes echo through early Christian texts. Its portrayals of angels and demons linger in the folklore of the Middle East. And now, in our time, its voice speaks once again. A voice from a distant age, offering a breathtakingly different vision of reality. This is not just a book. It's a reimagining of the dawn of time, a record that whispers of angels keeping cosmic scrolls, recording even your smallest actions in heaven's eternal tablets. A book that, by all accounts, should not have survived, but did. The Bible's deleted prequel. The Book of Jubilees once held immense respect in faith communities throughout the ancient world. In Ethiopia, it still holds that honor, regarded as scripture, studied by priests, and read aloud in churches. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, more copies of Jubilees have been found than nearly any other text outside of the Hebrew Bible itself. This was not some obscure piece of writing. For many, it was essential. Early Christians were familiar with this book. Church fathers quoted it, debated it, and in some cases revered it. In Ethiopia, they never stopped seeing it as divine. There, they call it the Little Genesis, a companion to the first book of Moses, a sacred chronicle that fills in the divine details the Bible left unsaid. So why don't most versions of the Bible include this book? To answer that, we have to look closely at how sacred texts were chosen. After the destruction of the temple, as Judaism reshaped itself for survival, the rabbis searched for scriptures that could unify a scattered people. Jubilees, with its strict solar calendar, so different from the lunar system most Jews had come to follow, felt more divisive than unifying. Its rigid structure seemed to leave little space for rabbinic interpretation. For early Christians building a brand new faith, Jubilees posed other challenges. Its detailed laws could confuse new converts, especially those taught that Jesus had already fulfilled the Old Covenant. And its vivid depictions of angels enacting God's will on earth seemed to overshadow Christ's singular divine role. Gradually, in most communities, the book drifted from the status of sacred scripture to that of a fascinating but unofficial ancient text. But what truly makes Jubilees stand apart is its radical perspective on time. The book reimagines history as a divine timeline divided into precisely measured blocks. It lays out all human events in Jubilee periods, each consisting of 49 years, built from 7 cycles of 7 years. Every event that unfolds in history, from births and deaths to wars and treaties, happens exactly when it's supposed to, already written in heaven long before taking place on earth. Then come the heavenly tablets, divine cosmic records preserved by angels. These do not only contain past events, but also detail what is still to come. In the world of Jubilees, there is no such thing as coincidence. Nothing is left to chance. Everything, from the smallest moment to the grandest turning point, follows a divine schedule set in motion at creation. One of the most striking features of Jubilees is how it rewrites the stories found in Genesis. It doesn't contradict them, it expands them. It adds conversations, motives, and unseen details. When Adam and Eve fall, the book explains which animals lost the ability to speak as punishment. When Cain murders Abel, it provides the names of their sisters, who would later marry them. Familiar stories become deeper, richer, and layered with new meaning. Angels, too, play a far more dominant role than in Genesis. They are present from the beginning. They teach humans vital skills and hidden knowledge. They carry out divine judgments and keep record of every deed humanity commits. One angel, never given a personal name but known as the Angel of the Presence, narrates much of the story, speaking directly to Moses. Another figure emerges, Mastema. He resembles Satan, but serves within the divine court. Mastema tests humans, accuses them before God, and commands spirits that stir up trouble on earth. But his actions are not rebellion. They're permitted by God, governed by strict limitations. In Jubilees, even evil has a role within heaven's greater design. The book doesn't present itself as a new revelation, but rather as a restoration of ancient wisdom. It claims that the knowledge within was given to Moses alongside the Torah, then lost for generations until it returned in this very text. It boldly states that it is older and more authentic than Genesis itself. This confidence won it followers, but it also made many religious leaders wary. Most chose to keep it at a cautious distance. Yet when we read Jubilees, we catch a rare glimpse into how some ancient people saw their world. A cosmos not of chaos, but of perfect structure. A universe in which even the planets and stars follow pathways established by God. In this vision, human beings are free, but that freedom operates within a grand plan already fully written in heaven. Time isn't simply a background. It has shape, intention, and sacred meaning. The Book of Jubilees doesn't begin with creation, it begins with Moses, not at the foot of Mount Sinai, but high upon its cloud-covered peaks. There, Moses waits, alone, to receive God's law. You may think you know this story from Exodus, but Jubilees adds something new, something hidden. While Moses is on the mountain, the angel of the presence comes to him with a divine commission. He is told to write down things no human ear has ever heard. Listen carefully to everything I tell you on this mountain, the angel says, and record it in a book, so that your descendants, and their children after them, will know I have not abandoned them. What Moses receives is not just the law. It is a retelling of all sacred history, from the dawn of creation to that very moment on the mountaintop. The angel explains that what he speaks comes directly from the heavenly tablets, God's master scrolls. On them is written every past and future event, carefully recorded before time began. Through this angel, Moses is taught the very architecture of time itself, not the lunar months that drift across seasons and require constant adjustments, but the perfect, heavenly calendar, exactly 364 days. This divine year is split into 4 seasons of 91 days, each season precisely 13 weeks long, 52 complete weeks, year after year, without exception. In this system, dates never shift. Holy days never fall out of alignment. Festivals and Sabbaths are celebrated on the exact same date, every year, forever. And according to Jubilees, this is the only calendar God accepts for observing sacred time. Observe the days, the months, and the seasons, the angel instructs Moses. If they alter this order, their seasons will be thrown into confusion. Their years will go astray. They will no longer observe the festivals or Sabbaths at the times appointed to them. Here lies one of the book's boldest declarations, that using the wrong calendar is not a minor mistake. It is a cosmic offense, a disruption of divine harmony. Those who follow lunar months or human-devised systems break their link with heaven's schedule. Their prayers and their holy days lose their power, for they fall on the wrong days, out of sync with the order of creation. This may sound unusual to modern ears, but to the author of Jubilees, time itself was a spiritual battlefield. After the Babylonian exile, Jewish communities came under pressure to adopt foreign systems of timekeeping. The author likely saw this as a threat to their core identity as God's chosen people. By anchoring their calendar in divine authority, they were resisting cultural erosion. The angel tells Moses that time was structured from the very beginning. Set into motion at creation, it flows through Jubilee cycles, 49-year spans made of 7 sabbatical cycles. Each historical event is like a note in God's divine symphony, already composed before the world existed. But the angel's message doesn't stop at cosmic timelines. Something more urgent is happening on that mountain. Moses learns that heaven and earth are caught in a spiritual conflict, a great battle between light and darkness. Angels of heaven guard the righteous, while Mastema and his spirits work to lure humans away from divine order. Write down all the words I declare to you today, the angel says, for I know their rebellion and their stubbornness. The angel foresees what is coming, how people will abandon the true calendar, how they will mix with foreign nations, how they will break God's eternal laws. This book is meant to serve as a cure, a way back to divine alignment, a path to restore what was lost. So Moses remains on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. He writes down every word dictated to him. He records the real story of the world, the true laws of God, the flawless timing of all things. And when he descends, he does not return with only the stone tablets. He carries with him this book as well, Jubilees, the sacred record of time itself. In this celestial vision, human freedom remains, but it is framed within boundaries established long before. We still choose our paths, but the arc of history follows designs already mapped in heaven. Time is not just the ticking of seconds. It is a living, sacred structure. To walk in harmony with it is to follow God's true calendar, a calendar revealed once again to Moses on the mountaintop. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's how Genesis begins, God alone speaking light into darkness. But Jubilees paints a different picture, a cosmos already alive with watchers, angels observing as God brings creation into being. The world God formed wasn't born in silence or emptiness. According to Jubilees, the heavens were not quiet, but filled with observers, angelic witnesses to earth's creation. The angel tells Moses, on the first day, God created the heavens above, the earth below, the waters, and all the spirits who serve before him. These include the angels of the presence, the angels of holiness, the angels governing the spirits of fire and wind, the angels over clouds, darkness, snow, hail, and frost. There are angels over thunder, lightning, sound, cold, and heat, spiritual forces woven into every corner of creation. The world comes together across 6 days, just as Genesis records, but in Jubilees, each divine act is recorded by angels, entered into the heavenly books. God isn't merely creating a world. He is constructing a cosmic structure of immense complexity. Each piece is assigned order and oversight, with angels appointed to maintain every realm of his work. On the first day, God does not only speak light into being. He also brings forth the angelic host. These are not chaotic spirits, but carefully organized ranks, each with a role. Some stand before God's throne, singing praises. Others act as divine messengers, while many are set over natural elements like wind, rain, stars, and seasons. When the waters are separated on the second day, angels are dispatched to guard their boundaries. When dry land emerges on the third day, new angels take up positions as overseers. Every piece of the natural world receives a supervisor, a guardian, and a celestial record keeper. Nothing happens by chance. Nothing unfolds without divine oversight. On the fourth day, as God sets the sun, moon, and stars into place, Jubilees reveals something extraordinary. This moment marks the establishment of God's perfect calendar. The sun's movement across the sky becomes not only a way to mark days but the core of a divine timekeeping system. Precisely 364 days. This calendar becomes central to Jubilee's message. It's not just a method for measuring time. It's a holy schedule that humans are expected to follow. He made the sun a great sign over the earth, the angel tells Moses, for marking days, Sabbaths, months, feast days, years, jubilees, and all seasons. Every unit of time has sacred purpose. To ignore or alter the calendar is to step outside the very design of heaven. On days 5 and 6, as in Genesis, animals are created. But Jubilees adds a symbolic layer, 22 types of creatures, corresponding to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Creation itself becomes a kind of divine language, ordered and sacred. Then comes humanity. Adam is formed from the dust, brought to life by the breath of God. But Jubilees offers a unique detail. Angels react to this new being in very different ways. Some rejoice at humanity's arrival. Others harbor unease, their concerns foreshadowing a deeper cosmic tension. In time, some of these angels will grow to resent humans and seek their downfall. The creation of Eve also differs subtly. The angel explains to Moses that Eve was not made alongside Adam on the sixth day. Instead, she was created later, after Adam had already been placed in Eden. This slight difference in timing may seem small, but it reflects deeper themes in Jubilees, especially in how the book views gender, purpose, and human roles. When God rests on the seventh day, Jubilees emphasizes that this is not just a pause. Something new is formed, something holy. The Sabbath is born, the crown of the week. And the angel tells Moses that only two groups are permitted to observe this sacred day: the angels in heaven and the Israelites on earth. All other nations are excluded from this divine privilege. In this retelling, Adam and Eve are not fully independent beings. They are actors in a sacred drama, their every move watched by angels. Their choices are noted in heavenly books. Their future is already etched into the cosmic tablets above. They possess free will, yes, but within boundaries laid down long before they took their first breath. God places the first humans in Eden with a purpose far deeper than tending a garden. They are to burn incense and offer sacrifices. Eden, then, is not just paradise, it is the first temple. From their first breath, humans were created to worship, to honor their Maker, and to uphold the divine structure set into motion during the 6 days of creation. By the end of Jubilee's creation story, we see a world far more intricate than Genesis alone suggests. A universe layered with angels, ordered by celestial timing, and governed by patterns determined before time began. At its heart, humanity stands as both precious and perilously small, central in calling, yet encircled by a vast divine system that records, observes, and, at times, intervenes. When the story reaches the moment of temptation, Jubilees takes us deeper than Genesis ever did. The familiar serpent appears. But this time, it's not acting alone. Behind this creature stands a darker force, Mastema, the prince of spirits, heaven's own prosecutor. The angel explains that the serpent is simply a vessel, a tool used by cosmic powers who resent Adam and Eve's divine role. The serpent draws near to Eve and speaks. Has God really said, "You shall not eat from any tree in the garden"? But this is no moment of innocent curiosity or playful deceit. According to Jubilees, it is a trial, a cosmic test. Will humans remain loyal to the divine order, or will they transgress? Eve responds as we know. She takes the fruit, eats it, and shares it with Adam. But in Jubilees, this is not just disobedience. It is defilement. By reaching for what was not given, they cross the line between sacred and profane. Their sudden awareness of nakedness is not mere shame. It is the loss of divine glory. The angel says, "On that day, their mouths were opened, and they began to speak. And they saw that they were naked." This new knowledge marks not wisdom, but a fall from innocence. It is not enlightenment. It is a dark awakening. They now know both good and evil. But that knowledge comes with sorrow, not power. When God arrives in the garden, it is not quiet. According to Jubilees, he comes in thunder and earthquake. The entire garden trembles as divine judgment is proclaimed. First the serpent is cursed, then Eve, then Adam. Each receives a punishment tailored to their role in this great cosmic breach. What happens next subtly shifts from Genesis. God does not clothe them in garments made from animal skins. Instead, the angel tells Moses, "The Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments of skin and clothed them." Some ancient interpreters took this to mean they were once clothed in garments of light, spiritual bodies now replaced by mortal flesh, subject to death. Their exile from Eden follows. But unlike Genesis, Jubilees gives us a precise timeline. In the first week of the first Jubilee cycle, Adam and Eve spent 7 full years in the garden. 1 complete week of years. Then came the fall. As they leave Eden, Adam takes 2 things with him. First, incense from the garden, so he can continue proper worship even in exile. Second, seeds from Eden's plants, so he can still tend the earth. These 2 items, offering and cultivation, symbolize humanity's lingering connection to their original purpose, to worship God and to steward his creation. The angel explains that Adam and Eve didn't just lose a garden. They lost direct communion with holiness. Heaven's tablets were updated, a decree issued that they must now be separated from all defilement. Sin had raised a barrier between earth and heaven, between the human and the divine. Outside Eden, their lives begin anew. They learn the work of survival. Adam tills the ground. Eve learns to weave and make clothing. They cook, plant, labor. Skills they never needed in paradise become their daily practice. They bear children, Cain first, with his sister Awan, then Abel, with his sister Azorah. Jubilees carefully records these names, details Genesis omits. Later, they have Seth to take Abel's place. And Jubilees gives us the exact time. 5 weeks into the 4th year of the 5th week of the first Jubilee. This exact dating is no footnote. It reflects the heart of the book's theology. Every event unfolds at its appointed time, already written in heaven's records before earth had ever begun. After Eden, time itself changes. Human life now flows through strict measurements: days, weeks, months, years, and jubilees. The first Jubilee, 49 years, marks the shift. The transition from paradise to the world outside was not just a change of scenery. It was the beginning of labor, pain, and mortality. The divine clock had started ticking. Time itself now flowed in one direction, toward ultimate judgment and eventual restoration. The angel tells Moses that Adam and Eve wept bitterly for the garden they had lost. They gathered fragrant plants and offered them as gifts to God, pleading for forgiveness. And God, though just, did not abandon them. Even as their exile began, mercy walked with them. Angels came to teach them the skills they would need to survive: how to farm, how to make clothing, how to endure. The sun and stars continued to move in perfect rhythm above them, a reminder that heaven's calendar still governed the world. So began human history beyond Eden's gates, a story of loss, yes, but also of purpose and sacred structure. Though paradise was closed, the order of creation remained. Angels still watched. Records were still being kept. And according to Jubilees, the path back to divine favor was still open for those who honored heaven's calendar and kept God's eternal law. Life after Eden pressed forward. Adam and Eve had more children, and the long arc of humanity began its unfolding. Jubilees tells us that during the first week of the second Jubilee, Adam and Eve welcomed their firstborn, a son named Cain. 7 years later, another son, Abel, was born. The brothers grew into men learning to live from the land. Abel became a keeper of sheep. Cain became a farmer, tilling the ground. They lived in harmony with the earth, at least for a while. When it came time to make offerings to God, Abel brought the firstborn of his flock. Cain, by contrast, brought produce from his harvest. Abel's sacrifice rose in a straight line to the heavens. Cain's offering, however, drifted sideways, unaccepted. Jubilees provides details Genesis leaves out. Cain was 22 years old. Abel was 20. This was not a sudden outburst of jealousy, but a bitterness that had festered over time. "Let's go for a walk in the field," Cain said to his brother. And away from witnesses, he struck him down. Abel's blood seeped into the very earth that had rejected Cain's sacrifice. The ground itself became both the silent witness and the evidence. Then God's voice pierced the silence. "Where is Abel, your brother?" Cain answered with defiance. "Am I my brother's keeper?" But God already knew. The blood had spoken. Unlike the Genesis account, Jubilees marks Cain's punishment with precision. His exile began that same year, its date recorded in heaven's eternal ledger. God placed a mark on Cain, not as a simple curse, but as a strange protection. He was banished east of Eden, where he built the very first city. He named it after his son, Enoch, not to be confused with the Skywalker we'll meet later. In Jubilees, the act of city building carries a deeper meaning. It wasn't just the making of shelter. It was the first human effort to create power structures independent from God's divine plan. For generations later, Cain's descendant Lamech killed 2 people, first a man, then a boy. Evil, having taken root in one act of fratricide, grew like wild thorns in a fertile field. What began as brotherly conflict spilled outward into clans and tribes. The first civil war of humanity had begun. Back in Adam's household, a new son was born, Seth. Through him, a different lineage would take shape, one that might still remember heaven's calendar. But the fracture had already occurred. The damage was irreversible. Death had entered the story, and now, time's arrow pointed forward into decay. Jubilees reveals that Cain's crime wasn't simply murder. It was the first breach in God's sacred timeline. From that moment on, the events of earth would begin drifting away from the script written in heaven. The grand divine clock had begun to lose alignment. Adam and Eve mourned the loss of Abel for 4 full Jubilees, nearly 200 years. Time itself became a measure of their grief. Their tears were the first evidence that human actions could echo across generations. The ground that drank Abel's blood would never yield harvest the same way again. The city that Cain built would never know peace. The pattern was set, brother against brother, shepherd and farmer at odds. In Jubilees, this is not just a family tragedy. It's a cosmic fracture. The angels above recorded every date, every decision, every consequence. Nothing was random. Even the first murder fit into heaven's timetable. And so began the long human journey away from Eden. A road marked by violence, but never outside God's watchful gaze. The calendar continued its steady turn. The Jubilees were counted. The angels wrote it all down. In the 7th generation from Adam came a man unlike any who had come before him. His name was Enoch, and Jubilees treats his story with reverence and care. He was born in the 6th week of the 7th Jubilee, a life mapped by sacred numbers from the very beginning. Genesis gives Enoch only a passing mention, but Jubilees expands his tale into something luminous. He was not merely a righteous man who walked with God. He was the first human to decipher heaven's rhythm. At 12 years old, Enoch began to fear and revere the Lord. By 65, he had mastered the motions of the sun, moon, and stars. The angels themselves taught him to observe the flow of time across the sky. He wasn't just gazing upward in wonder. He was reading the heavens like a sacred text. Jubilees shows us what Genesis only implies. Enoch was the world's first priest of the stars, the first astronomer of divine truth. 6 Jubilees after creation, the human race finally had someone capable of reading God's celestial calendar without error. The stars spun overhead, and Enoch knew their names. The seasons shifted, and he marked each one with precision. He was the first man to master writing, to grasp wisdom and knowledge. Before him, Jubilees says, time passed without witness. After him, the days had a keeper. For 300 years, Enoch walked among his people. He taught them the patterns of heaven. He wrote everything down. The first sacred texts flowed from his hands. His scrolls documented angels, demons, celestial mechanics, and divine commandments. He became a bridge between worlds. Jubilees gives us something Genesis never does: the reason for Enoch's elevation. He stood in defiance of the fallen angels who had taught humanity corrupt knowledge. While others embraced weapons, vanity, and rebellion, Enoch taught the truth. He taught time. In his 365th year, a number matching the days of the solar year, Enoch did not die. He was taken. Jubilees says the earth released him. The skies received him. He had studied the heavens with such devotion, he now joined the angels he once learned from. Jubilees tells us that the angels carried him to the Garden of Eden. There, Enoch became the scribe of heaven, recording every deed of humanity. He now writes down each sin, each virtue. The man who tracked time became part of the eternal. Before leaving earth, Enoch warned his son Methuselah of what was coming. The waters would rise. The world would be cleansed. A new beginning was already appointed. The flood was not random. It was written in heaven's timetable long before. In Enoch, we see Jubilees' ideal human, one who keeps the true calendar, one who honors heaven's law, one who serves as witness to divine order. He is both scholar and prophet. He is scientist and mystic. He reads the stars and speaks with the angels. What makes Jubilees' portrayal of Enoch so profound is not simply his ascent to heaven. It's that he conquered time. In a book obsessed with sacred dates and appointed seasons, Enoch is the one who got it perfectly right. Through him, humans receive the real calendar, not the drifting lunar months or the corrupted timings of pagan nations, but the pure, divine solar year, 364 days, broken into 4 equal seasons. And because Enoch followed that timing with faith and precision, he escaped time's greatest curse, death. He stepped out of the river of days and into the stillness of eternity. Into the timeless realm where angels dwell, Enoch passed beyond the reach of mortal time. The Skywalker became a dweller among the stars. But once he was gone, his knowledge began to fade from the earth. People forgot the true calendar. They missed the appointed days for sacred festivals. They planted crops at the wrong times. With each passing jubilee, the gap between heaven and earth widened. Still, Enoch watches. According to Jubilees, from his place in Eden's garden, he continues to record our story. The first timekeeper still keeps time for all of us. The flood is coming. 10 generations after Adam, the world had wandered far from the path. Jubilees tells us that by the days of Noah, corruption had spread across the earth and wickedness had taken hold. The divine timetable that God had so carefully designed had fallen into disarray. But unlike Genesis, Jubilees doesn't just say humanity was wicked. It explains exactly why judgment came. Angels, known as watchers, had abandoned their appointed stations in heaven. They descended to earth and took human women as wives. Their offspring were giants, monstrous beings who devoured mankind. These fallen angels introduced forbidden arts to humanity. They taught metalworking, cosmetics, sorcery, and the misreading of stars, knowledge heaven had not yet authorized. The wisdom came too early, without divine context to guide it. The order of time itself had been shattered. Noah stood alone in this broken world. Jubilees describes him as righteous in every way, a rare light in an age of darkness. When Noah turned 500 years old, at the exact age foretold in the heavenly tablets, God spoke to him of the coming waters. Jubilees adds a chilling detail left out of Genesis. While Noah built the ark, demons, under the leadership of Mastema, Jubilees' name for Satan, worked furiously to corrupt humanity further. They knew their days were numbered. The cleansing flood would soon wipe away their influence. The ark was not merely a lifeboat. It was a temple adrift, a vessel constructed to exact heavenly specifications. 3 floors, precise dimensions, 1 door. Nothing was improvised. Every cubit reflected a divine blueprint. In a world that had fallen so far out of alignment, the ark stood as the one thing built perfectly right. Noah gathered the animals, separating them by sevens and by pairs, depending on their cleanliness for sacrifice. Jubilees notes these distinctions carefully, down to which creatures could be eaten and which could not. Even in the midst of global catastrophe, God's dietary laws still mattered. His order held firm, regardless of crisis. On the 17th day of the second month, in the 600th year of Noah's life, the waters arrived. Rain poured down from above. Fountains broke open from beneath. Heaven and earth worked together to purge the world of its corruption. For 40 days, the waters covered everything. Jubilees tracks the timeline of the flood with a precision Genesis never gives. The floodwaters rose for 40 days. Then, for 150 days, they remained at their peak. They began to recede on the first day of the 10th month. The mountaintops appeared. By the first month of Noah's 601st year, the ark came to rest. This is not merely narrative detail. For Jubilees, these dates are sacred. They are embedded in heaven's calendar. The flood was not an impulsive punishment. It was a scheduled cleansing, a divine appointment marked long before the skies ever opened. Inside the ark, a remnant of life waited. 8 humans, pairs of animals, seeds and plants, nothing chosen by chance, all selected as vessels for renewal. When the final wave withdrew and the ground dried, a new world awaited. But in the heavens, something else had changed. Jubilees tells us that most of the fallen angels were now judged and bound. Mastema, their leader, begged God for mercy, not for himself, but for his servants. Surprisingly, God granted it, partially. "Let 1/10 remain before me," God said, "and let 9/10 descend into the place of judgment." Evil would continue in the world, but under limits. It would now be restrained, leashed by divine authority. Noah stepped onto dry ground. His first act was worship. He built an altar and offered sacrifices from the clean animals and birds. The smoke rose, and God accepted it. Unlike Cain's offering so long ago, God then made a covenant with Noah. He promised never again to destroy the earth by flood. But Jubilees adds something Genesis omits. God also restored the true calendar, the same one lost since the time of Enoch. A solar year of 364 days, divided with perfect symmetry into weeks and seasons. The world began again, washed, but not yet whole, and time resumed its forward march. The rainbow marked God's patience, stretching over a planet cleansed but still flawed. The flood had come exactly as heaven had ordained, and the next judgment, Jubilees hints, would come in due time too. With the waters gone, life resumed. Noah's first act was to build an altar. His second was to plant a vineyard. Jubilees tells us precisely when, on the 27th day of the second month, 1 year and 10 days after the flood began. The soil, enriched by the flood, nourished the vine quickly. Noah harvested the grapes, made wine, and, unaware of its strength, drank deeply. He fell asleep, unclothed, in his tent. Then came one of Scripture's strangest moments. Ham, Noah's middle son, saw his father's nakedness. Instead of covering him, he went out and told his brothers. Shem and Japheth took a garment, walked backward into the tent, and respectfully covered their father without looking at him. When Noah awoke and learned what had happened, he did not curse Ham. He cursed Ham's son, Canaan. Genesis leaves this moment ambiguous. Jubilees does not. It explains that Ham's sin was more than witnessing his father's shame. He had violated a sacred boundary between father and son. It was not just an act of embarrassment. It was a disruption of divine order. Before this event, Noah had already divided the earth among his 3 sons. After Ham's disrespect, he did not revoke the division, but he did place a curse upon Canaan. The timing mattered. The land had already been given, but the relationships had now fractured. "Cursed be Canaan," Noah said. "A servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." That declaration set a pattern that echoed through generations. Canaan's descendants would serve the lineages of Shem and Japheth. Jubilees then maps the spread of Noah's family with geographic clarity. Shem received the middle portion of the earth, what would one day become the land of Israel. Ham took the hot southern regions. Japheth inherited the cool northern lands. Each son swore an oath to honor these borders. But oaths, Jubilees reminds us, can be broken. Canaan looked upon Lebanon and the Jordan Valley, land that had been given to Shem, and he took it anyway. "Cursed be Canaan," the text repeats, "for he settled in a land that was not his." This moment mattered deeply to Jubilees' original readers. The book was likely written at a time when Jewish people were facing territorial threats. By telling this story, the author wasn't just recounting history. He was declaring that the enemies of Israel lived on stolen ground, in defiance of God's command. Noah lived 350 years after the flood, bringing his total lifespan to 950 years. Jubilees gives the count with reverent precision: 19 Jubilees, 2 weeks, and 5 years. It emphasizes that Noah was perfect in his conduct. He kept God's commands faithfully, and before his death, he gave one final warning to his sons. He cautioned them about coming corruption. Jubilees adds a detail missing in Genesis. Noah specifically warned them not to consume blood. He also forbade them from mixing kinds, whether animals, plants, or garments. Maintaining sacred boundaries was a holy duty. His sons went on to build cities. Their children became nations. The world filled again. 10 generations had passed since Adam. Now, a new count would begin. The cosmic clock kept turning, counting forward, toward Abraham, toward Moses, and beyond. What makes Jubilees' account of Noah so remarkable isn't only the story of the flood. It's how every moment fits flawlessly into heaven's predetermined schedule. The flood arrived exactly on cue. Noah's life spanned precisely 19 Jubilees, plus additional weeks. Nothing was accidental. Everything was measured, everything recorded. And in that precision lies the book's core message. Even disasters operate within God's plan. Even curses unfold according to heaven's larger design. The angels remain vigilant. The heavenly tablets remain open. Time flows ever onward, drawing creation toward its appointed fulfillment. 3 generations after Noah, humanity once again came together. They gathered in the land of Shinar, united by a single language and a single aim. "Come," they said, "let us build a city and a tower that reaches into the heavens." Their ambition wasn't merely prideful. According to Jubilees, it was something even deeper, an attempt to escape divine judgment. Rather than trusting God's promise sealed by the rainbow, they sought refuge in human architecture. They built the tower using baked bricks and bitumen, materials designed to resist water. A fortress not just of stone, but of fear. God descended to observe this grand human project. He saw one people speaking one tongue, building upward toward heaven. But his response wasn't wrath. It was reordering. It was time for the nations to scatter, as had always been intended. Jubilees provides an exact moment for this event. At the beginning of the 34th Jubilee, human speech was fragmented. The single global family splintered into 70 distinct nations, each matched to one of the 70 angels appointed by God to oversee the peoples of earth. This wasn't chaos. This was divine division. Heaven's structure imposed upon human pride. Lots were cast. To each angel, a people and a language were given. To each nation, a defined territory with clear borders. But there was one exception. One angel received no land. Instead, the Most High kept a 71st portion for himself. The descendants of Shem, through Arpachshad, were placed under God's direct rule. From this chosen line, Abraham would one day emerge. The tower project halted. The city, eventually known as Babel, was left unfinished. The people scattered like wind-blown leaves, moving east and west, north and south. They spoke words no longer understood by their neighbors. Cousins became foreigners. Unity fractured. And here, Jubilees introduces a powerful detail absent from Genesis. After the languages were split, most of the 70 angels led their nations not toward truth, but away from it. They introduced idol worship. They taught their people to offer improper sacrifices and to follow false calendars. The 70 angels became 70 deceivers. Only the portion God kept for himself remembered the true path. Only they preserved the 364-day calendar. Only they continued to observe the correct Sabbaths and festivals. The rest fell into confusion and darkness. Nimrod, great-grandson of Noah, built the first earthly kingdom in this fractured world. But Jubilees does not celebrate him. It portrays Nimrod not as a mighty hunter before the Lord, but as the first rebel against God's design. He built cities and raised walls. He invented warfare. He drew territorial lines that contradicted God's original divisions. The unified family of man had become a broken house. Cousins no longer understood one another. brothers now waged war. Each tribe claimed land as its own, forgetting the shared origin from which they all sprang. The angels assigned to each nation deepened the distance. They drew their peoples further into error and spiritual blindness. In this divided world, true knowledge faded. The sacred calendar that Enoch had once taught, the one Noah had preserved through the flood, was now remembered by only a few. Most nations turned to lunar months and astrological signs, following systems that no longer aligned with the rhythms of heaven. Exactly 349 years after the flood, in the first year of the second week of the 10th Jubilee, a child was born in the land of Ur of the Chaldees. His name was Abram, known later as Abraham. Through him, God would begin to call back a people who might once again walk in harmony with the timing of heaven. In Jubilees, the Tower of Babel marks not just a moment of ambition or divine punishment. It is the turning point when humanity tried to reach heaven on its own terms. They built upward using their own measurements. They pursued unity without the center that gave it meaning. The confusion of languages wasn't just a judgment. It was a mercy. If humanity had continued as one, speaking a single tongue, building one global empire, its corruption would have become unstoppable. Instead, division scattered the threat. Evil was no longer concentrated. It was dispersed, limited by geography and language. And this division occurred, just like everything else in Jubilees, precisely on time. 70 nations, placed under 70 angels, 70 languages, 70 territories, and one sacred portion held apart. Through that single line, all nations might someday receive blessing. The clock kept ticking. The Jubilees were still being counted, and the stage was finally set for Abraham to step into the story, the one through whom covenant would return. In a quiet village called Ur, a young boy named Abraham watched his father, Terah, carve idols from wood and clay. But unlike the others around him, Abraham felt something stir within. Something told him these lifeless figures were not worthy of worship. He looked to the stars, not as random specks of light, but as signs of something larger. He saw in their movements a message, patterns, order, design. One night, while Terah slept, Abraham took a wooden hammer and smashed all the household idols. He left only the largest one standing, with the hammer placed in its hand. When Terah discovered the wreckage, he demanded to know who was responsible. The big idol did it, Abraham replied calmly. Can't you see the hammer in its hand? Don't be foolish, his father said. These are just objects. I made them. They have no power. Then why do you worship what your own hands have made? Abraham asked. In that moment, something irreversible awakened in him. The Book of Jubilees tells us this wasn't a prank by a rebellious child. It was the first spark in a journey that would reshape the human story. While Genesis tells this story briefly, Jubilees presents Abraham as a cosmic revolutionary. At the age of 14, he began to study the stars, not as decorative lights, but as keepers of time. While others followed the shifting moon, Abraham discovered the truth of the solar year, 364 days, divided into 4 seasons of exactly 13 weeks each. I will not follow the path of lies, he told his family. He rejected idol worship and turned toward the God who had placed the stars into their precise orbits. This was more than spiritual awakening. It was cosmic alignment. When famine came, Abraham's family journeyed to Haran. There, the young man matured into a teacher. He built a tower, not to reach heaven, but to track the movement of the sun. He showed anyone willing to listen how the true calendar worked. Many laughed at him, but some heard. And the angel dictating to Moses notes that God watched Abraham with care. Unlike others, Abraham didn't just see patterns. He traced them back to their origin. He understood that time was not a human invention. It was a divine gift, and a test. Then, one night beneath the desert sky, a voice called to him, "Leave your father's house. Go to the land that I will show you." This was not simply a call to travel. It was an invitation to step into a new timeline. A timeline aligned with the design of heaven itself. The journey was long, and each step brought new trials. But according to Jubilees, Abraham didn't just endure, he marked every milestone with purpose. At each significant place, he built an altar, not simply as a gesture of worship, but as a cosmic anchor. Every stone he placed corresponded to a specific moment, aligned with feast days already recorded on the heavenly tablets. long before any human had ever walked the earth. When Abraham reached the land of Canaan, he didn't merely claim it. Jubilees tells us he was reclaiming territory that had been divinely allocated to the descendants of Shem, land that had been wrongly seized by the children of Canaan. This wasn't just tribal conflict. It was cosmic correction, a realignment of the earthly map to match the one drawn in the stars. As Abraham walked the length and breadth of the land, he wasn't simply exploring new soil. He was retracing the boundaries of a divine contract. Every movement, every footstep, had been mapped before creation. Each step was a beat in a celestial choreography. The War of the Kings began with dust rising like smoke across the horizon. For powerful kings marched their armies towards Sodom. They had already conquered 5 cities, leaving only destruction in their wake. Among their captives was Lot, Abraham's nephew, dragged away with all his possessions. When a survivor brought the news to Abraham, the old shepherd didn't hesitate. Though Genesis tells this episode in passing, Jubilees expands it, showing us Abraham not as a reluctant rescuer, but as heaven's chosen warrior. He gathered 318 trained men. Jubilees points out that this number itself reflects celestial patterns. Under the veil of night, Abraham split his force into tactical groups. They descended like a sandstorm on the unsuspecting camps. Sudden, precise, overwhelming. This was not just military strategy, it was divine orchestration. Each strike landed at the exact hour predetermined in heaven's scrolls. As the sun rose, the armies that had once terrorized the region were scattered and broken. Abraham had not only rescued Lot, he returned with great spoils, wealth that now carried divine significance. According to Jubilees, this victory happened on the very anniversary of Noah's landing after the flood. It was a day when divine justice typically revealed itself. On his journey back, Abraham encountered a mysterious figure, Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High. Genesis mentions this briefly, but Jubilees goes further. Melchizedek is not just a man. He may be one of the angels assigned to guard heaven's sacred timeline. Abraham bowed before him and offered a tithe, a full tenth of all he had recovered. This wasn't just generosity. It was cosmic acknowledgement. By doing this, Abraham recognized that his victory had been foretold, written in the stars before his life even began. Melchizedek blessed Abraham with bread and wine, symbols loaded with meaning. According to Jubilees, these gifts foreshadow future festivals. The bread represents harvest feasts. The wine symbolizes joy in its proper season. Their meeting lasted precisely 1 day, from sunset to sunset. A perfect Sabbath observance. And though the law had not yet been given to Moses, Jubilees insists this was not coincidence. It was proof that true worship flows in harmony with heaven's calendar, not man's inventions. When the king of Sodom offered Abraham wealth as a reward, the patriarch refused. His words echoed through time. "I will take nothing, not even a thread." Jubilees explains this wasn't just moral dignity. It was sacred foresight. Abraham knew that accepting human reward would bind him to human timelines, and he belonged only to God's. As Abraham journeyed home, the stars burned above him, patterns only he could fully understand. Jubilees tells us that each constellation whispered confirmation. History does not unfold by chance. Every event moves with purpose, on time, by design. Then came the covenant. The air was thick with destiny as Abraham stood beneath a sky glittering with stars. "Look up," the voice said. "Count them if you can." Abraham lifted his eyes to the heavens he had studied since youth. Now, those stars no longer spoke of mystery. They spoke of his future. Jubilees tells us that this moment happened exactly 50 years, a full jubilee, after Abraham had first turned away from idols. Heaven's clock turned with flawless precision. While Genesis describes the covenant in brief, Jubilees presents it with grandeur. Abraham fell into a deep sleep, but this was no ordinary slumber. His spirit was lifted. He was shown the heavenly tablets. There, written in divine light, was all of time, past, present, and yet to come. Abraham saw the land divided, not by human politics, but by eternal decree. Each tribe's territory had already been assigned. Every border had been drawn by the same hand that etched the constellations. This wasn't just property. It was sacred geography, cosmic design anchored in soil. When Abraham awoke, he carried the vision with him, and a voice spoke, "This is my covenant with you. The flesh of your foreskin must be cut away." Genesis treats circumcision as a symbolic sign. Jubilees reveals more. This was alignment in flesh, a physical transformation to match a celestial pattern. Abraham didn't hesitate. At 99 years old, he took the knife and fulfilled the command. Jubilees tells us he performed the act precisely when the sun reached its zenith during the spring feast, another act in perfect sync with divine time. His entire household followed. From children 8 days old to servants purchased with silver, each was circumcised in obedience. Then came Mastema. The accuser stood before God and challenged what he saw. "This man grows too powerful," he said. "Test him further." Jubilees is the only place where we learn of this heavenly exchange. It reveals that Abraham's trials weren't random. They were deliberate, cosmic tests, not earthly accidents. As Abraham recovered from circumcision, 3 figures approached his tent. Genesis calls them men. Jubilees names them clearly, angels. They were heaven's messengers, arriving on a scheduled visit, a date etched into the divine calendar before Abraham's birth. Sarah laughed at their promise of a child. But Jubilees says her laugh did not vanish into the desert wind. It echoed through heaven, recorded in the celestial tablets. And from it came Isaac's name, laughter written into eternity. When the messengers turned toward Sodom, Abraham stood beneath the night sky once more. The stars above, which once felt so distant, now glowed with familiarity. They were no longer just lights in the sky. They were family, each one a point of divine promise, each one tied to his descendants by a covenant no hand could undo. According to Jubilees, Abraham had become more than a man. He had become a living instrument of time. His heartbeat now pulsed in rhythm with heaven itself. He was a timepiece made flesh. The burden was heavy on Isaac's back, but he still carried it with innocence, trusting his father completely. While Genesis recounts this story with sparse detail, Jubilees fills in the gaps with layers of sacred meaning. The journey to Mount Moriah didn't occur on a random day. It happened precisely on the date that would, centuries later, become the Day of Atonement. This timing wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate design. For 3 days, father and son walked mostly in silence. Jubilees tells us they crossed rivers whose names matched those flowing from Eden. They ascended hills that mirrored the shapes of the mountains where angels gathered. Each step aligned with a celestial path already mapped out in heaven's records. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place. He knew instantly that this was it, not from a sign, but from ancient memory. According to Jubilees, this was the very location where Adam had once offered sacrifice, and later, where Noah had built his altar after the flood. Isaac looked around. "The wood is here," he said, "and the fire, but where is the lamb?" Abraham replied gently, "God himself will provide the lamb, my son." In Genesis, this might sound like evasion. But in Jubilees, it is revealed as prophecy. Abraham had already seen the future in his covenant vision. He knew exactly what would happen. When they reached the summit, Abraham built the altar with meticulous care. Every stone was placed in accordance with patterns shown to him in his dreams. This wasn't a pile of rocks. It was a sacred blueprint rendered in stone. Isaac stood nearby, watching and understanding far more than the Genesis account suggests. "Bind me well," Isaac told his father, "so I don't move and ruin the sacrifice." According to Jubilees, Isaac was no trembling victim. He was a willing participant, fully aware of his role in the divine drama. At 25 years old, he could have easily resisted or overpowered his aged father. But instead, he chose obedience. Submission, not fear. As Abraham raised the knife, the heavens themselves seemed to still. Then, a voice rang out. An angel called to him. Not just any angel, but the very one who had first marked the covenant. Nearby, a ram was caught in the thicket. Genesis presents this as a test of faith. Jubilees frames it differently. This was a rehearsal, a divine enactment of a future moment. This sacred scene foreshadowed another moment in time, when a father would again face the loss of a beloved son on the very same calendar day. After the offering, Abraham and Isaac descended the mountain forever changed. According to Jubilees, they returned home on the exact date that would one day become Passover. A day when death would once more pass over those found faithful. The timing wasn't symbolic. It was fulfillment, another note in the melody first inscribed on the heavenly tablets before time began. At a well outside the city, young women gathered with jars in hand. The old servant, sent by Abraham, approached slowly. His mission was sacred: find a wife for Isaac, not from the daughters of Canaan, but from among their own kin. Jubilees explains that this was not simply tribal preference. It was a matter of cosmic design. When Rebekah appeared, the servant recognized her instantly. Genesis recounts a test involving water. Jubilees tells us the servant didn't need a test, because she matched the exact description given to Abraham by angels years earlier. Her face, her walk, even the sound of her voice, all had been foretold. Rebekah's journey to Isaac followed its own divine schedule. She arrived at his tent on the anniversary of Sarah's death, a day marked in the heavenly records. Their meeting wasn't chance. It was part of a sacred rhythm. For 20 years, Rebekah could not conceive. Genesis offers this as a brief note, but Jubilees clarifies it was a divine pause. The twins needed to be born in a year aligned with cosmic cycles. Even the womb obeyed heaven's calendar. When Rebekah finally became pregnant, her distress was more than discomfort. Jubilees tells us that two destinies were battling within her. Not just two boys, but two futures. Two timelines wrestling to be born. She cried out, "Why is this happening?" and went to seek answers. Genesis doesn't say where. Jubilees does. She visited Melchizedek, still alive, still serving as heaven's record keeper. "Two nations are within you," he said, "and the older shall serve the younger." These weren't merely prophetic words. They were a direct reading from the heavenly tablets, a destiny written before the first sunrise. When the twins were born, they could not have been more different. Esau emerged first, red, hairy, grasping at life. Jacob followed, his hand holding Esau's heel. Genesis notes this detail. Jubilees unpacks its meaning. Esau rushed ahead of divine timing. Jacob moved slowly, attuned to heaven's pace. As the boys grew, their paths split wider. Esau became a hunter, drawn to wild places. Jacob stayed in the tents, learning the ancient stories and the sacred calendar. This wasn't just personality. It was spiritual alignment. Esau followed impulse. Jacob followed design. One day, as Jacob simmered a pot of red lentil stew, the aroma filled the air. Jubilees notes that this wasn't just any day. It was the anniversary of Abraham's covenant vision. Esau came in from the field, starving. "Give me some of that red stew," he said. "I'm dying." "Sell me your birthright first," Jacob replied. In Genesis, it might seem opportunistic. Jubilees explains the deeper truth. Jacob knew the birthright already belonged to him according to heaven's decree. He wasn't stealing. He was reclaiming what was divinely assigned. Later, when Isaac grew old and his eyes dimmed, Rebekah remembered the words spoken by angels before her sons were born. According to Jubilees, she didn't devise the plan to help Jacob obtain the blessing. She followed instructions shown to her in dreams. The angels had given her the exact method. As Jacob stood before his father, wearing Esau's clothes, the angels watched. They approved. This wasn't trickery. It was alignment. The rightful son in the rightful moment. Human events falling into heaven's timeline. Esau's rage shook the family, but even his fury served a larger purpose. It forced Jacob to flee, to begin the journey that would change not only his life, but the identity of an entire people. Right on schedule. That night, Jacob fled through the desert. Darkness fell. He lay down, placing a stone under his head. Alone, between two lives. No longer in his father's house. Not yet in the land of Laban. But the place where he stopped would soon become something more. A meeting ground between dimensions. As sleep overtook him, a vision appeared. A ladder, towering, vast, rising from the ground beneath him into the sky above. This wasn't a dream of escape. It was a glimpse into the structure of all things. According to Jubilees, this ladder revealed the order of creation itself. Angels moved up and down it, not aimlessly. They were heaven's ranks, delivering judgments, carrying messages, maintaining balance. They crossed a barrier that humans seldom see, moving between the realms, bridging heaven and earth. What makes this vision so significant in Jubilees is that it marks a boundary. Jacob stumbled into a thin place. a location where heaven and earth touch. Genesis tells the story briefly. Jubilees expands it into a full heavenly encounter. And then, God speaks from above the ladder, renewing. The promise first spoken to Abraham was now being extended to Jacob. The land beneath the dreamer's head would someday belong to his countless descendants. Nations would bow before his lineage. But Jubilees adds something critical, a timeline. This isn't just a hopeful promise floating in the distant future. It is a scheduled event, written into heaven's calendar long before Jacob was born. When Jacob awoke, trembling in awe, he didn't merely name the place Bethel, as Genesis recounts. According to Jubilees, he marked the occasion with a full ritual. He recorded the exact date and time of the encounter. He poured out oil. He made solemn vows. And he established the very first tithe, a tenth of all he owned, consecrated and returned to God. Jacob, like his grandfather Abraham, became a timekeeper. But as Jacob set apart a holy place on earth, darker forces were stirring. Mastema, heaven's accuser, washed with rising unease. This divine promise to Jacob posed a threat to his claim over the Gentile nations, territories he had sought to dominate after the confusion at Babel. Now, Jacob's blessing disrupted that hold. Jubilees hints at a war being waged behind the scenes. Angels guarded Jacob as he journeyed to Laban. They shielded him from unseen forces seeking to divert his path. Every step Jacob took, every pause or decision, occurred precisely on heaven's timeline. Not a moment too early, not a second too late. This theme, meticulous divine timing, is Jubilees' most treasured motif. Nothing in history happens by accident. The ladder in Jacob's dream wasn't just a spiritual image. It was evidence of constant, active management. Angels didn't simply bring messages. They enforced divine law. They tracked every deed. And they reported each detail back to the Almighty. Jacob's vision marked him as the next link in an eternal chain, a divine plan stretching backward and forward through time. The very ground where he slept would one day be the foundation of a temple. The God who spoke from above the ladder would one day enter into covenant with Jacob's descendants. And the angels ascending and descending would continue their appointed tasks, keeping time, marking days, ensuring that what is written in heaven becomes reality on earth. Bethel was more than a sacred place. It was a timestamp, fixed within the cosmic ledger of creation. The story of Dinah takes a sharply different turn in the Book of Jubilees. While Genesis offers a tragic tale of violation and vengeance, Jubilees recasts it entirely. Here, the episode becomes a defense of tribal purity and a reaffirmation of divine justice. It begins in familiar fashion. Dinah, daughter of Jacob, visits the women of Shechem. There, the city's prince sees her, desires her, and takes her. Genesis portrays what follows as a cycle of violence driven by rage and deception. But Jubilees transforms it into a cosmic drama about protecting bloodlines and preserving heavenly order. In Genesis, Jacob's sons deceive the Shechemites, convincing them to be circumcised before launching a deadly attack. It reads as overreaction, morally ambiguous. But in Jubilees, their act is not only justified, it is praised. For this deed, the text says, they are inscribed for blessing in the heavenly tablets. Why would such a brutal act be celebrated? Because Jubilees views intermarriage as a violation of divine law. It isn't just a family matter, it's a cosmic breach. Long before this event, Noah had assigned each of his sons a portion of the earth. The Shechemites were occupying territory that had been allocated to Shem's line. But Canaan, cursed generations earlier, had unlawfully settled there. Their very presence violated heavenly decrees. Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, are seen not as wrathful men, but as agents of divine correction. Their violence restores a sacred boundary that never should have been crossed. And Jubilees goes even further. It gives us the exact date of the event. Because in this worldview, even the timing of justice matters. The angel narrating to Moses explains that this bloodshed served as a warning for all future generations of Israel. Any union with those outside the chosen lineage would bring divine consequence. The brothers did not sin. They fulfilled eternal law. Simeon and Levi, so often criticized in other traditions, are here honored. Their names are recorded for blessing in the heavenly tablets. Those same celestial scrolls that track every act of righteousness or rebellion, every life and every death, every obedience and every trespass. Even Jacob's anger is reframed. His fear of retaliation from neighboring tribes is called unnecessary. For heaven, the text says, provided a shield. Angels prevented revenge. No harm came to Jacob's family. As they departed from Shechem, it was not in retreat, but under divine protection. Blood purity becomes central in this passage. The mixing of chosen and unchosen seed isn't just discouraged, it threatens the entire redemptive plan. Jacob's descendants must remain distinct. The heavenly tablets demand it, the angels uphold it, and the patriarchs must obey it. What Genesis treats as moral complexity, Jubilees presents as clarity. Time, land, lineage, and law converge in this violent act. To readers of Jubilees, Dinah's story is not about victimhood or vengeance. It is about upholding the structure of creation itself. The blood spilled in Shechem becomes another entry in the eternal record. Joseph's story is one of the Bible's most cherished narratives. A favored son betrayed, sold into slavery, only to rise to greatness in a foreign land. But in Jubilees, the story holds even deeper meaning. It is further proof that heaven's timeline is unstoppable. Even human betrayal cannot derail it. Joseph's tale begins much as it does in Genesis. Jacob gives him a special coat. Joseph dreams of greatness. His brothers grow jealous. But Jubilees adds a crucial element: timing. When Joseph's brothers plot against him, it happens on the exact day Jacob mourns the anniversary of his mother's death. This isn't coincidence. It is layered meaning, grief echoing through generations, one sorrow mirroring another, all logged in heaven's books. They strip Joseph of his robe. They throw him into a pit. In Genesis, this is the raw product of envy and spite. But Jubilees shows us more. Mastema, the accuser, is present. He seizes this opportunity to attack Jacob's faith. He whispers to the brothers, stoking their rage beyond natural limits. What seems like triumph for darkness actually advances the divine script. Joseph must go to Egypt. He must rise. He must become the one who will save his family. And all of this had already been inscribed in the heavenly tablets, before Joseph ever took his first breath. When the Midianite merchants lift Joseph from the pit, they are unknowingly fulfilling destiny. Their path had already been drawn in the stars. What looks like tragedy is actually movement within a divine design. The brothers think they've taken control, but they've only stepped into roles already written. Jubilees tracks the timing of it all. Each leg of Joseph's journey is counted, from his departure to his arrival in Pharaoh's court. Nothing late, nothing early. Even in Egypt, far from sacred spaces, heaven's clock ticks on. Jacob's grief is given special weight in Jubilees. He dons sackcloth. He weeps bitterly. But here we learn something Genesis never tells us. Angels are watching. They record every tear, every moment of sorrow. His pain is not wasted. It is measured. It is added to the grand record of human struggle. When the brothers dip Joseph's coat in goat's blood and present it to their father, Genesis sees a family lie. But Jubilees sees more. It is a temporary win for Mastema, a moment when deception takes hold. Yet even that serves. The unfolding of Joseph's life, from slavery to exaltation, was not a series of coincidences. It was a sequence orchestrated down to the day and the hour. What looks like random twists and surprising turns are, in the Book of Jubilees, divine appointments written into the heavenly tablets before the world began. Joseph's descent into slavery, his unjust imprisonment, his gift of interpreting dreams. Every one of these was part of a larger, sacred design. Even Egypt, where Joseph was sent, had been previously assigned to Ham's descendants during Noah's division of the earth. So Joseph's presence there marks a rare, temporary crossing of divinely ordained boundaries. But this crossing serves a holy purpose, preparing the ground for the greater exodus to come. While in prison, Joseph doesn't simply suffer. He bears witness. His endurance becomes testimony. And all the while, angels are marking his footsteps. Each step, each word, each sleepless night measured precisely against heaven's schedule. Not a single moment is wasted. Not a single tear goes uncounted. Heaven's scribes record every line of Joseph's journey in their perfect books. As the Joseph story concludes, the bondage begins. The famine Joseph predicted arrives exactly on time. 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of scarcity. But for Jubilees, this isn't just climate and crop failure. It's measured judgment, divinely calibrated, unfolding exactly as heaven declared. Joseph, prepared by heaven, has already filled Egypt's granaries. Now, as hunger spreads, his brothers make their way south in search of grain. Their reunion unfolds similarly to the Genesis account. Joseph recognizes them, keeps his identity hidden, tests their hearts, and eventually reveals himself with weeping and embrace. But Jubilees adds something Genesis does not: precision and timekeeping. It notes the exact date Jacob learns his son is alive, the specific moments he begins the journey to Egypt, the points at which he crosses territorial boundaries. Every movement fits into the sacred architecture first laid out with Abraham. When Jacob enters Egypt, Pharaoh welcomes him. But what Genesis treats as a generous reception, Jubilees sees as the opening move in a divine trial. Egypt was never meant to be Israel's home, only a refuge, a place of shelter and testing. The heavenly tablets had already recorded the duration of their stay, the years of pain, and the exact moment their deliverance would come. Joseph secures Goshen for his family, the finest land. They prosper and multiply, fulfilling the command to be fruitful. But Jubilees issues a warning. Prosperity brings risk. The danger of forgetting their identity, of absorbing Egyptian customs and worshiping foreign gods. As Joseph nears the end of his life, Jubilees portrays him as troubled, concerned that comfort might erase memory. So he gathers his brothers. He binds them with an oath. They must never forget their homeland. They must one day return and carry his bones with them. This wasn't nostalgia. It was covenantal necessity. Joseph's remains could not rest in Egyptian soil. They belonged to Canaan, the land of promise. After Joseph's death, the shift begins. Genesis mentions it briefly. A new Pharaoh arises, unaware of Joseph. Jubilees expands it into a spiritual crisis. This isn't just a change in political leadership. It's a cosmic clash. A new ruler serving different gods, operating on different rhythms. The balance Joseph once maintained is broken, and slowly, precisely, the Hebrews go from guests to prisoners. Suspicion becomes strategy. Strategy becomes policy. Policy becomes cruelty. Slavery doesn't fall like a hammer. It builds like a storm, and Jubilees charts every step. When Pharaoh finally decrees the murder of Hebrew sons, it isn't just his idea. Jubilees unveils the shadow behind the throne, Mastema, heaven's accuser. The same dark being who once fueled Joseph's betrayal now whispers to Egypt's king. Each drowned child marks another blow against Abraham's covenant. Yet even amid this horror, the divine timetable remains firm. The suffering will reach its limit. The oppression has a scheduled end. Moses' birth comes not as a stroke of fortune, but on cue, marked in heaven's tablets before the foundations of the world. The deliverer arrives exactly when he should, no sooner, no later. Even in the depths of bondage, angels are present. They count every lash. They mark every tear. They track the mounting cry that will soon echo through the courts of heaven. The great liberation is coming. In Jubilees, the Exodus is more than a story of freedom. It is a war between realms. Behind Pharaoh's stubborn heart stands Mastema, the accuser, waging war across both heaven and earth. Moses grows up within the walls of Pharaoh's palace. Later, after killing an Egyptian, he flees into exile. But when he returns to Egypt, he comes not alone. He carries the authority of heaven itself. Jubilees reveals that Mastema is already waiting to oppose him. It is Mastema who hardens Pharaoh's heart, pushing him past normal resistance in a supernatural defiance. This isn't just politics. It's cosmic warfare. As the plagues begin, Jubilees describes them differently from Exodus. Each plague is not just a natural phenomenon, but a direct strike against the gods of Egypt and the demonic forces behind them. The Nile turns to blood, not merely as a shock to Pharaoh, but as a blow to the spirit of the river, a sacred power of Egyptian worship. When Moses' staff becomes a serpent and devours the magician's serpents, it's not a trick, it's a declaration. Heaven is stronger than Mastema. The magicians try to respond, but they serve the wrong master. Mastema, desperate now, teaches the magicians how to mimic the plagues. For a brief time, it works. Pharaoh sees his sorcerers produce blood and frogs and believes Moses holds no special power. But then, they fail. When the lice appear, the magicians cannot replicate it. Because Mastema's power cannot create life, not even the smallest living thing. Only heaven can. And even the magicians confess, this is the finger of God. With each plague, the battle escalates. Flies, diseased livestock, boils. Each one targets a specific deity, stripping away the illusion of power. When darkness falls over Egypt, it is more than night. It is Mastema's shadow weakening. Then comes the final plague, the death of the firstborn. And here, Jubilees says something extraordinary. Mastema himself becomes the destroyer, but only under heaven's command. He who sought to destroy Israel is now forced to carry out judgment against Egypt. The Passover gains deep cosmic meaning. The lamb's blood on the doors doesn't just repel a generic angel, it binds Mastema. He cannot enter where the blood marks the threshold. His power breaks like a wave against that line. As the Hebrews prepare to leave, Mastema makes one final move. He pushes Pharaoh to chase them, even after releasing them. He knows what's coming. His final humiliation at the sea. When the waters part for Israel and crash down upon Egypt's chariots, Jubilees sees not only a miracle, but a battlefield. Angels hold back the waves. Mastema drives Egypt's army forward. But heaven wins. The Red Sea doesn't just close. It crushes the last stronghold of Mastema's control over Israel. For a season, he retreats, wounded, not destroyed. He will return again in the wilderness. But his power has suffered a decisive blow. Moses stands victorious. But Jubilees makes it clear, the victory belongs to heaven's timing. Each plague, each sign, each moment, happened exactly when the heavenly tablet said it would. Not even Mastema could disrupt that schedule. The Exodus begins, right on heaven's perfect clock. Darkness lifts. A new day dawns over the desert. Thousands of Hebrew families stand at Egypt's edge. Behind them, centuries of bondage. Ahead, freedom. The moment is exact. It had been written in heaven, long before any human set foot on earth. For in the Book of Jubilees, the Exodus is far more than a historical escape from bondage. In the Book of Jubilees, it becomes a cosmic appointment, a moment foreseen and fixed in divine timekeeping. The angel reveals to Moses that this exact day had been etched into the heavenly calendar long before creation's dawn. The 14th day of the first month, the day destined for freedom to burst forth like sunlight after a long night. Picture the moment. Israelite homes painted with lamb's blood, sandals already strapped on, staffs ready, unleavened bread still warm. But Jubilees adds something Genesis leaves out: angels standing guard. They didn't merely pass over homes. They protected them, not from weather or mere misfortune, but from Mastema's agents, dark forces that prowled, searching for any gap in divine protection. The Lord did all things as he had promised, the angel tells Moses. Each plague, every sign, every turn of events, unfolded in exact alignment with a plan written before time itself. Egypt wasn't simply crushed by nature's chaos. They were confronted by heaven's organized army, moving in perfect sequence. For the author of Jubilees, the timing is everything. Freedom did not arrive by chance. It arrived precisely 430 years to the very day after God's promise to Abraham. Heaven runs on time. At the sea's edge, Moses lifts his staff. Jubilees paints this scene differently than Exodus. The sea doesn't just part through raw power. It reverts to its primordial order, returning to the shape it held at the moment of creation. This isn't merely water splitting. It's creation responding to the divine rhythm. When Pharaoh's army follows, they violate that sacred order. The closing sea doesn't just drown men. It crushes time's violators, those who try to defy heaven's design. On the opposite shore, newly freed slaves erupt in song. But Jubilees adds a breathtaking detail. Angels sing with them. Heaven and earth join in chorus. Freedom reverberates through dimensions. The first Passover isn't just remembered in future generations. In heaven, it is eternal, celebrated beyond time. As the people journey toward Sinai, Jubilees opens up a deeper layer. Every step, every rest stop, every sip of water aligns with heaven's calendar. The manna doesn't just appear. It arrives when heaven's storehouses open at the appointed time. And then comes the mountain. Moses ascends Sinai, not just to receive a moral code, but to synchronize earth with heaven. The angel begins not with commandments, but with time itself. He teaches Moses the structure of divine timekeeping, the feasts, the Sabbaths, the years of Jubilee. All are ways for humans to move through time in sync with creation's pulse. Passover isn't just memory, it's participation in an eternal freedom. Each time it is celebrated at the correct time, heaven and earth align. Barriers thin, but when it's neglected or mistimed, the very fabric of reality trembles. The covenant at Sinai is more than a contract. It is a rhythm, a way of moving through time in harmony with divine intention. And in this light, the greatest sin isn't simply disobedience. It is violating divine time itself. Sinai, the real one, trembles. Smoke coils skyward. Lightning dances across rock. And Moses climbs higher still, stepping away from the people into the clouds. And here is where Jubilees splits from the version we know. On the mountaintop, Moses doesn't just receive 2 tablets of law. He receives the secret blueprint of time. The angel of the presence, one of heaven's highest ministers, speaks to Moses. What I am about to show you, he says, was written before humans ever walked the earth. From creation to the eternal sanctuary to come, this is what Sinai is really about. Not just law-giving, time teaching. Moses learns that before anything existed, before light, sea, or sky, God created time's framework. A perfect calendar, 364 days, 7-day weeks, no leap years. Every date falling on the same weekday, forever. No drift, no confusion. The angel reveals the heavenly tablets, not just commands, but the full script of history. Every feast, every divine appointment, written long before Adam drew breath. The sun, the moon, and the stars were not just lights. They are hands on heaven's cosmic clock. As lightning flashes across Sinai's crags, the angel tells Moses of Adam, who knew these times, of Enoch, who recorded them, of Noah, who preserved them through the flood. But again and again, humanity strayed, choosing the changing moon over the steady sun, adding days, misaligning feasts, celebrating sacred moments on corrupted calendars. And creation groaned. The tablets Moses sees are more than rules. They are the code of the cosmos. Every law reflects an event in the higher world. The Sabbath is not just rest, it echoes God's eternal pause. Passover doesn't just remember, it joins an everlasting freedom. The Day of Atonement reflects a cleansing far beyond the temple. In Jubilees, the endless lists of dates and times aren't dry. They're the living pulse of reality. The angel makes clear, observing the right calendar is not mere formality. It is alignment. It is worship. It is survival. For sin, he explains, is not only breaking the law. It is breaking the schedule. Eating what is unclean is wrong. But even clean food at the wrong hour is rebellion. Working is noble. But laboring on Sabbath tears a hole in the link between heaven and earth. Israel was not chosen merely to obey rules. They were chosen to keep time, to be the earthly people who restore cosmic harmony through sacred rhythm. Their calendar becomes a tuning fork, bringing back harmony to a world offbeat. Moses trembles, not because of thunder, but because he understands what's been given to him. Every date, every count in Jubilees now makes sense. Each one is a crack in the veil, a moment where humans can align with angels, where eternity peeks through. The real gift at Sinai isn't just law. It's participation in meaning. It's the chance to belong inside time itself. The law isn't a burden, it's a compass, a melody, a rhythm, a map of when to move, rest, fast, feast, and feel heaven pulse through your own heartbeat. As Moses prepares to descend, the angel gives him a final truth. These heavenly tablets, this perfect calendar, will be opposed. Nations will invent their own times. Even Israel will forget. But those who keep heaven's schedule, they will never truly lose their way. They will always have a way back to divine harmony. This is why the Book of Jubilees holds such deep affection for the law. Most people think of laws as rigid constraints, lines we're warned not to cross. But in Jubilees, the laws are seen quite differently. They aren't walls. They're windows, openings that let divine light pour into human time. The angel speaking to Moses describes each command not as weight, but as gift. Every rule is connected to a moment in cosmic history. each one a thread in the vast tapestry of creation. These aren't random rules. They're revelations of how reality operates at its most profound level. Take the Sabbath. In Jubilees, this day isn't just a break from work. It's the one day when humans can glimpse what angels experience without end. The angel explains that even the highest beings in heaven keep Sabbath, not out of exhaustion, but to stay in rhythm with creation. The seventh day, he says, is the only day God blessed. All holy things are blessed and hallowed on this day. When humans honor the Sabbath, they're not just resting. They're stepping into sync with powers far beyond their understanding. The dietary laws may seem strange through modern eyes. What to eat, what not to touch. But Jubilees reframes them as protection rather than restriction. The angel reveals that every food carries a spiritual force. Some strengthen the spirit, others bring decay. These commands aren't about nutrition. They're about purity of soul. Sexual boundaries are also treated differently. These aren't merely moral suggestions. They mirror the structures of heaven itself. Violating them isn't just a private matter. It rips at the very fabric of creation. When Israel lives within these boundaries, they aren't just obeying, they're repairing what was broken. Even stranger laws gain new meaning. The command to cover oneself when relieving the body might seem overly cautious. But in Jubilees, it's about mimicking heaven's order. Angels shield their gaze in sacred spaces. Humans must reflect that reverence. What gives the law its true beauty in Jubilees is its timing. Every command has its hour. Circumcision on the 8th day. Harvest offerings on exact dates. Festivals when the sun crosses appointed points. These aren't rituals, they're entries into divine rhythms. Unlike other Jewish texts from the same period, Jubilees doesn't treat the law as adaptable. Here, the law is fixed, just as the stars are. The angel explains to Moses that these laws existed before mankind and will remain after. They're not cultural customs. They're constants written into the universe. This explains one of Jubilees' most distinctive traits, its obsession with exactness. The wrong day, the wrong action, the wrong boundary. All these don't just miss the mark, they shatter cosmic harmony. Moses learns that the law is more than obedience. It is belonging. By aligning with heaven's timing, humans participate in something far beyond death. They step partially into eternity. By moving with heaven's rhythms, their lives become echoes of eternal motion. Even small deeds ripple across dimensions. The law, then, is no longer a burden. It's a love letter from heaven. Instructions on how to live in time while touching what is timeless. Feast days, blood, and timing. The sun dips below the horizon. The stars begin to appear. A new month starts. But which month? According to what calendar? For most, these might seem like small questions. But to the author of Jubilees, they are of immense spiritual consequence. The angel teaches Moses that the feast days are more than celebrations. They are sacred intersections, moments when the veil between heaven and earth becomes thin. Celebrate on the correct day, and heaven leans close. Celebrate on the wrong day, and the power is lost. Passover marks the beginning of the sacred year. It does not merely remember freedom. It channels that freedom from heaven into the present. The 14th day of the first month, not the 13th, not the 15th. Only then does the energy of liberation reach its peak. Jubilees insists on a solar year, 364 days, not the 354-day lunar calendar that others would later adopt. The angel warns Moses, "Follow the moon, and you drift. Drift from sacred days. Drift from alignment. They will disturb the days," the angel says, "and make holy time meaningless." This isn't just confusion. It's catastrophe. Blood plays a central role in these sacred feasts, not because heaven thirsts for it, but because blood is life's essence. When offered properly, at the right hour, it becomes a channel between worlds. The blood on doorposts during Passover wasn't symbolic. It was literal protection against destruction, a spiritual boundary. The Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, gets special attention. It's not only about forgiveness. It's about cosmic purification. On this one day, heaven's courts are fully open. Prayers rise like incense. But offer them on the wrong date, and the gates remain shut. The Feast of Tabernacles, booths, goes deeper still. Not just remembering the wilderness, but stepping back into it. Building tents isn't a gesture. It's participation. For a few days, humans live as Adam did, uncovered beneath heaven's gaze. First fruits, Pentecost, new moons. Each feast builds a bridge, but only when walked at the right hour. Jubilees treats these dates not as tradition, but as reality. Get them wrong, and the bridge isn't there. The angel warns Moses of a coming problem. Some will adopt a lunar calendar, off by just 10 days each year. That may sound small, but over time, it leads to collapse. Feasts slide out of season. Moments meant for connection pass unnoticed. Heaven opens, but no one arrives. To the author of Jubilees, calendar debates are not theological trivia. They are spiritual warfare. Led by Mastema, confusion's prince, the enemies of divine order don't just tempt people with sin. They tempt them with wrong timing. Celebrate on the wrong day, and you honor the wrong spirit. That's why Jubilees speaks so harshly about calendar keepers who stray. They're not just careless. They're covenant breakers. For Jubilees, true faithfulness is never just about what you do. It's about when you do it. Blood, timing, covenant. They twist together like strands of one divine thread. The feasts aren't just historical echoes. They're current access points. Each one is a moment when eternity presses close. When human joy mirrors angelic song. When celebration becomes worship. And for a breath, the walls between heaven and earth dissolve. The feasts become far more than memories. They become medicine for a fractured world, realigning creation with its creator through the power of precisely timed obedience. Mastema's final tricks. While Moses receives the flawless heavenly calendar atop the mountain, shadows move restlessly below. The angel reveals to him that Mastema, heaven's chief accuser, has not remained idle. Even as divine order is being unveiled above, chaos is quietly being planted below. Jubilees gives us a unique vision of spiritual conflict. Mastema isn't portrayed as God's equal, nor quite the Satan later traditions would know. He is more akin to a prosecutor who's become obsessed with seeing the guilty condemned. Once tasked with testing humanity, he now delights in their collapse. The angel tells Moses how Mastema approaches the throne of God with relentless accusations against Israel. See how quickly they turn aside, he argues. They are not worthy of your law. But his deeper strategy is far more subtle. He aims not just to tempt the people into sin, but to confuse their calendar, blur sacred timings, and disconnect earth from heaven. When the people grow anxious at the base of the mountain, Mastema strikes. He whispers, Moses has been gone too long. The timing is wrong. He has failed to return as promised. This temporal confusion leads to spiritual collapse. The golden calf is not just idolatry in Jubilees. It is a fracture in time itself, humanity creating its own schedule for worship, ignoring the divine one. And this, the angel explains, is Mastema's favorite weapon, not just wrong acts, but acts done at the wrong time. Mastema's presence stretches through all sacred history. The angel reveals his pattern. He always appears at transitions, at moments of threshold, when the divine clock strikes key hours. Remember when Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac? According to Jubilees, that test wasn't God's idea, it was Mastema's challenge. He only loves you because of his son, the accuser claimed. Ask for the boy, and he'll say no. When Jacob wrestled until dawn, his opponent wasn't just a strange man. It was one of Mastema's agents, trying to block his arrival in the promised land at the ordained hour. Even the Egyptian magicians who mimicked Moses' signs weren't merely talented conjurers. They were drawing on Mastema's borrowed power. The angel explains that Mastema can replicate divine acts, but never create anything truly original. He twists, he distorts, but cannot birth. The early plagues in Egypt became a battleground. God eventually binds Mastema, limiting his interference. That's why later plagues face no magical counter. He's temporarily restrained. But now, with Israel on the verge of receiving the covenant, Mastema returns. This time, working more quietly. He doesn't directly challenge God anymore. Instead, he nudges humanity out of sync, misplaced Sabbaths, incorrect feast days, drifted calendars. These are his tools. The punishment isn't arbitrary. It's organic. Step out of heaven's timing, and you lose its protections. Disease, confusion, and conflict seep into the cracks. Generations born into broken timing inherit more than error. They inherit imbalance. Realigning with heaven's rhythm isn't simple. It can take lifetimes to repair. Yet the angel offers Moses hope. Even in seasons of chaos, a remnant remains. Those who keep the right days, who light fires at the right twilight. Through them, the narrow road stays open. Always hard to find, but never completely shut. The forbidden calendars and the hidden war of time. Among all spiritual disputes, nothing burns hotter in Jubilees than the war over calendars. This isn't about preference. It's about cosmic loyalty. Jubilees insists God created a flawless 364-day solar year. This isn't merely a tool. It is the heartbeat of creation. The sun's steady path marks sacred time, solid, reliable, divine. But in exile, Israel absorbed other systems. The Babylonians followed the moon, with its shifting months and drifting patterns. When Jewish communities embraced lunar time, they stepped into rebellion. For the writer of Jubilees, the consequences are severe. Feasts fall on the wrong days. Prayers miss their heavenly targets. Sacrifices lose their sanctity. Why this passion for a calendar? Because time, in Jubilees, is not neutral. It is sacred. The 364-day year divides perfectly, 52 full weeks. For seasons, each lasting 13 weeks, exactly 91 days. No need for leap days. No drift. In this framework, holy days never wander. Passover always arrives on the same date. Sabbaths stay anchored. This mirrors the rhythm of heaven. Angels celebrate these feasts on the same days, year after year. The community at Qumran clung to this truth like breath itself. Their scrolls reveal a passion for the solar calendar that went far beyond ritual. They believed the temple priests in Jerusalem had fallen into error by following the moon. In their eyes, Israel had abandoned the eternal covenant. These weren't scholarly debates. They were cosmic battles. The Qumran sect believed every disaster was a result of breaking the true timeline. Follow false time, and you draw divine wrath. In one unforgettable passage, Jubilees describes how angels set the solar system in motion, not just to provide light, but to keep sacred time. The sun, the angel says, is the great sign. For days, for Sabbaths, for months, for years, for Jubilees, for all seasons appointed by heaven. The moon, it lights the night, but it does not guide sacred time. Modern ears may find this intensity strange, but in ancient minds, right ritual at the right time opened gates. Say the right prayer when heaven listens, and the divine responds. Say it at the wrong time, and it vanishes into silence. The Essenes, who cherished Jubilees, lived out this faith each day. Their dawn prayers aligned with solar movement. Their feasts rejected Jerusalem's calendar. They waited for heaven to reset the clock, for sun, stars, angels, and mankind to move again in perfect sync. This war over time didn't end in the desert. It echoes through history. Every time a group claims to know the divine schedule, whether prophets, priests, or reformers, they join that same ancient battle. The calendar isn't just a chart. It's a throne. And the question is, who sits on it? The land, the law, and the legacy. In the vision of Jubilees, three threads form one eternal covenant. Land, law, time. Each one depends on the others. Each one keeps the others alive. The land of Israel isn't simply territory. It's sacred ground, a place where heaven reaches down to kiss the earth. The law isn't just a list of rules. In the vision of Jubilees, it functions as the operating system of creation itself. And time is the thread that binds it all together, an unbroken cycle of sacred meaning. When the angel reveals these profound links to Moses, he does so with solemn urgency. The land promised to Abraham's descendants, he explains, was measured and marked by divine hands. Each tribal allotment mirrors a celestial arrangement, rivers, plains, and mountains shaped to match the blueprint of heaven. And God said to the angels, "Let us make man in our image and likeness." So they created Adam and his wife, blessed them, and revealed to them the boundaries of the land. From the river of Egypt to the great Euphrates, the inheritance of Abraham's seed was shown, a gift eternal, but not without condition. This promise is not unconditional. It stands only so long as Israel walks in rhythm with God's calendar and upholds his commands. If they break the cycles of Sabbaths, ignore the food laws, or defy the holy feasts, the land itself will turn against them. Jubilees makes this relationship physical. The very soil will reject those who corrupt it. According to this sacred text, the law wasn't born at Sinai. It existed before the world began, etched into heavenly tablets by God's own hand. The angels live by these commands. Adam practiced them in Eden. Abraham kept them long before Moses. The patriarchs weren't stumbling through partial truths. They had full instruction passed to them by angelic messengers. This eternal Torah challenges later rabbinic traditions. In Jubilees, no human court can revise God's laws. No urgent situation can override the Sabbath. The commands stand like stars, fixed and unwavering, guiding humanity through an ever-shifting world. But most astonishing is how Jubilees binds Israel's national destiny to the fate of all creation. Their faithfulness doesn't just affect crops or rain. It shapes the harmony of the cosmos. When Israel lives by holy time, peace flows into every realm. But when they stray, chaos ripples through even the angelic hosts. The burden is immense, but so is the glory. Israel alone possesses true knowledge of time. They alone hold the rhythms that sustain the universe. Their priests serve in harmony with heaven's priests. Their festivals open gates between dimensions. This inheritance passes not just through blood, but through memory and instruction. Jubilees traces detailed lineages to show how the calendar, the law, and covenant consciousness are handed down. Abraham blesses Jacob, not Esau, because only Jacob will keep the sacred timing. Joseph resists Egypt's temptations in order to preserve temporal truth. For seekers of ancient wisdom, this interweaving of land, law, and legacy offers a vision of faith that predates doctrine. Holy ground, sacred time, a chain of memory stretching across generations. Jubilees isn't offering mere law. It's unveiling humanity's purpose in the cosmic dance. The prophecy of apostasy. As Moses receives these revelations atop Sinai, the angel's voice shifts. It grows quieter, more sorrowful, and filled with devastating clarity. He unveils the future. Though Israel has seen the Red Sea part and heard God speak from fire, they will still drift away. Though they carry the divine calendar and heaven's wisdom, they will not remain faithful. This isn't a vague warning. It's precise foresight. They will enter the land. They will prosper. And then, slowly, imperceptibly at first, they will begin to forget. The Sabbaths will be broken. The food laws ignored. Intermarriage will dilute the bloodline. Foreign gods will replace the true one. And, the angel says, they will forget all my law and commandments and judgments. They will lose sight of new moons, of Sabbaths, of jubilees, of ordinances. This is not the rebellion of a sudden revolt, but the decay of time itself. A drifting boat slipping from its moorings. At first, they'll keep the feasts on the wrong days. Then they'll stop keeping them altogether. Eventually, they won't even remember why the rhythm mattered. And so God's response will come, not in fury, but in phases. Prophets will be sent with warnings. When these are ignored, foreign powers will rise. The temple, the calendar's anchor, will fall. And the land, once sacred, will expel its caretakers. Yet even within this grim vision, a thread of hope glows. The apostasy is certain, but it is not final. A faithful remnant will remain. They will cling to the old truths in the shadows. They will preserve the calendar. They will rebuild the altars. They will restore holy time. And then, the angel says, they will return to me with all their heart, soul, and strength. And I will gather them from among the nations. This vision of time is not a straight line, nor a flat circle. It is a spiral. Each generation repeats the choices of the last, either drawing closer or drifting further. For the original audience of Jubilees, likely living under Hellenistic or Roman rule, these words carried both warning and comfort. Their battles weren't new. Their calendar was their resistance. Their obedience was defiance against a universe out of sync. The prophecy closes with restoration. Yes, people fall, but the covenant, etched in stars and seasons, endures beyond failure. Time itself pulls everything back into alignment. The final generations. As the angel's tone intensifies, he lifts the curtain on the last chapters of human time. The cycles of Israel's fidelity and failure fade. Now, the future opens. A future charged with hope and luminous promise. History has a direction. It's moving toward a conclusion. Time will bend back to its beginning. The long-shortened human lifespan will expand again. Children born in those final days will live to see centuries pass. Their hair will gray not from sorrow, but from wisdom. Sickness will withdraw. The soil will produce freely, without sweat. And, the angel says, in those days, children will begin to study the laws. They will seek out commandments. They will walk again on the righteous path. As these earthly changes unfold, spiritual realms stir as well. Angel armies gather in silence, awaiting final orders. Mastema's influence fades. Light spreads like dawn. The ancient barriers between heaven and earth begin to thin. Not all at once, but steadily. Not with explosions, but with awakenings. Families will pass on forgotten knowledge. Communities will reweave the sacred calendar. Feasts will return to their rightful place. Creation itself will begin to hum in tune once more. But with this gentle return also comes separation. The faithful and unfaithful will diverge. Those who kept the covenant will step into light. Those who abandoned it will be left behind. And the angel declares, the days will multiply for humankind. They shall again draw near to 1,000 years, as it was before Eden's fall. What's most remarkable is how different this vision is from other apocalyptic texts. There is no world-devouring flame, no battle of monsters, no destruction of all things. Instead, creation heals from within. The same sun that saw Eden's sunrise will shine on its return. The same land promised to Abraham will welcome his descendants. The same law will guide the final age. For those who long for ancient truth, this offers a striking vision of time. Not a march toward oblivion, nor a random cycle, but a spiral back toward origin. The future doesn't promise something new. It promises restoration. Not escape, but return. Not invention, but remembrance. And in those final scenes, the golden age lies ahead, as it once lay behind. The line between story and prophecy dissolves. The angel allows Moses to witness the days ahead as if they've already come to pass. Every moment is written into heaven's tablets before the first star burned in the sky. From the divine vantage point, the final generation already walks beside the first. Jubilees closes not with frantic prediction, but with quiet certainty. The pattern etched into stars, and seasons will not fail. The covenant inscribed in heaven will come to life on earth. Time moves at the command of God, carrying creation back home. And yet, after centuries of guiding Israel's path, the Book of Jubilees fades from view. Once held beside the Torah in reverence by certain communities, it slowly slipped away. It moved not with a crash, but with the quiet erosion of cultural memory, from scripture to footnote. As Rabbinic Judaism took form in the aftermath of Jerusalem's fall, practical questions surged to the front. How could covenant endure without sacrifices? How could sacred time be observed without priests or temple? The answers became a new kind of faith, mobile, adaptable. Prayer replaced offering. Study rose as the highest form of worship. In this new framework, Jubilees seemed inflexible. Its unbending calendar, insisting that Sabbaths fall on fixed dates every year, clashed with rabbinic reckoning. Its claim that patriarchs followed the full law before Sinai disrupted newer interpretations. Most problematic, its reliance on heavenly tablets left little space for oral Torah, the cherished legacy of rabbinic leadership. And as one passage laments, there was of old a strife on Mount Zion concerning the Sabbath day. They had forgotten the covenant and profaned the Sabbath. The Dead Sea community, which revered Jubilees, vanished without leaving defenders. Both the temple in Jerusalem and the spiritual claims of Qumran lay in ruins. The calendar wars that once stirred impassioned debate lost their heat in a world without altar flame. Christianity, meanwhile, wrestled with its own questions. Some early followers may have treasured Jubilees. Its stories echoed in Christian texts. But as the gospel spread among Gentiles, complex calendrical laws seemed more burden than blessing. Only in the Eastern churches did Jubilees find fertile ground, and nowhere more so than in Ethiopia. There, the book never faded. It remained scripture, beloved, studied, recited. A voice preserved while others moved on. In the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, Jubilees holds a singular place. For nearly 2 millennia, it has stood as canonical scripture, one among many texts unfamiliar to the Western world. Asked to see a Bible in an Ethiopian church today, and you will find Jubilees nestled among the holy books, as if it had never been lost at all. Why did Ethiopia embrace what others left behind? Geography played a role. Cut off from the theological battles that shaped Western Christianity, isolated by terrain and later by the rise of Islam, Ethiopian Christianity developed along its own path. But that is only part of the answer. The Ethiopian soul found resonance in Jubilees. Its devotion to sacred calendars, ritual purity, and angelic order mirrored Ethiopian spiritual instincts. Jubilees was not seen as a curiosity, but as a guide to cosmic truth. They didn't call it Jubilees. In Ethiopia, it is known as the Little Genesis, or sometimes the Book of Division. These names capture its purpose, an expanded telling of creation and the patriarchs, with a special focus on how time was divided and sanctified. Its survival connects to another treasured Ethiopian text, the Kebre Nagast, or Glory of Kings. This book recounts the tale of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, claiming their son Menelik carried the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. The Kebre Nagast, like Jubilees, centers on divine election, sacred artifacts, and the continuity between heaven and earth. Today, Ethiopian Orthodox priests still read from Jubilees during special rites. They turn to it at moments of temporal transition, New Year's, solstices, births. In doing so, they continue a line unbroken since ancient times. While the wider world forgot or forbade the text, Ethiopia protected it. In the monasteries of Lake Tana, in the stone-hewn churches of Lalibela, manuscripts of Jubilees have been copied and recopied with reverence. Some of these are works of delicate artistry, filled with vivid images of angels handing down the heavenly tablets to Moses. The scribes who safeguarded them may not have known how rare their task was, but through their devotion, a lost book lived on. They were preserving something long vanished from the rest of the Christian world. Ethiopia's guardianship of the Book of Jubilees gives us a glimpse into a parallel history, one where this ancient text was not rejected or forgotten, but revered as sacred revelation. To Ethiopian eyes, Jubilees has never been strange or heretical. It is simply part of God's Word, offering rare insight into heaven's views on time, purity, and covenant. When Western scholars finally came upon Jubilees in the 19th century, they were astonished. They hadn't found it buried in ancient ruins, but still alive, actively read and treasured in Ethiopian churches. The first modern translations of the book weren't reconstructed from decayed fragments, but copied directly from living manuscripts, faithfully preserved across centuries. Their pages had been softened by the touch of generations of priests who never once doubted their holy worth. Ethiopia's devotion to Jubilees reminds us that religious history is never just a story of progress or theological consensus. It's also shaped by memory, by what different peoples choose to preserve, and what truths they hold sacred. In the cool, silent air of the Ethiopian highlands, Jubilees never lost its voice. Even when the rest of the world stopped listening, it kept speaking. To the faithful in Ethiopia, the angels of Jubilees still stand guard over sacred time. The heavenly tablets still hold divine laws, and counting the days according to God's calendar remains an act of deep spiritual importance. In this one remarkable corner of the earth, Jubilees never needed rediscovery because it had never been lost. The year was 1947. A young Bedouin shepherd tossed a stone into a shadowed cave along the cliffs near the Dead Sea and heard something unexpected break. That single sound led to one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in human history. The Dead Sea Scrolls, hidden for 2 millennia in sealed clay jars, changed everything we thought we knew about early Judaism. And among these fragile texts, protected by desert silence, was a familiar but long silent voice, the Book of Jubilees. At Qumran, where a secluded Jewish sect waited for the end of days, Jubilees wasn't obscure. It was foundational. Archaeologists uncovered more copies of Jubilees in those caves than nearly any other non-biblical text. To the people of Qumran, likely the ancient Essenes, Jubilees was not an old curiosity. It was the heartbeat of their theology. They didn't just read Jubilees, they lived it. This community had broken away from mainstream Jewish society, believing the temple in Jerusalem had grown corrupt. In their eyes, true worship could only happen in their desert sanctuary, under heaven's unaltered clock. What drew them so deeply to Jubilees was its vision of divine time, a 364-day solar calendar, immovable and sacred. Following this calendar wasn't about practicality. It was a theological stand. By rejecting the lunar calendar used in Jerusalem, the Qumran community declared the temple priests illegitimate. To them, the leadership in the holy city had forsaken heaven's timing. They had stepped out of sync with cosmic rhythm. Every Sabbath, every feast, every ritual act at Qumran followed the calendar of Jubilees. Each observance was more than a tradition. It was a declaration of loyalty to the angels who kept time in heaven. When they prayed or offered sacrifices, they believed they were joining the celestial hosts, offering praise on the same day, in the same rhythm. The fragments of Jubilees found in the caves were often worn thin, their pages clearly studied, touched, loved. Other writings unearthed in those scrolls, the community rule, the war scroll, echoed the same themes. A world divided between light and darkness. History following a divine script. Angels overseeing every step. Their calendar was a mirror of heaven itself. Each year had exactly 52 weeks, 364 days. Each season was made of 3 30-day months, plus one additional day, forming 4 perfectly even quarters. This symmetry meant that holy days never drifted. Passover always fell on the same weekday. Sabbaths remained steady. There was no need for adjustment, no leap years, no guesswork. To the people of Qumran, time itself had become a form of worship. Their loyalty to Jubilees wasn't about rigidity, it was about communion. They believed that when they celebrated feasts according to the solar calendar, they stood alongside the angels. Meanwhile, the temple in Jerusalem, bound to a lunar schedule, had lost its way. In the dry air of the desert, Jubilees endured. The scrolls survived, waiting silently in darkness until they were seen again. When scholars finally read the ancient fragments, they realized something astonishing. This wasn't a minor text. It was central to the life and devotion of a powerful sect. Jubilees wasn't just read, it was obeyed. It shaped every aspect of life in the desert. Its purity laws were followed. Its calendar ruled every hour. And its vision of angels and pre-written history provided comfort in a chaotic world. The coming community believed they were the true Israel, the faithful remnant, and Jubilees was the book that anchored them in the rhythm of eternity. When they finally hid their scrolls, perhaps they hoped someone, someday, would understand what they had tried to preserve. Centuries passed. Jubilees slept in the dust, almost forgotten. But then came the scholars. In the 19th century, European travelers returned from Ethiopia carrying strange manuscripts. Among them were copies of a mysterious text few in the West had seen before. The Book of Jubilees had re-entered history, not through ruins, but through living faith. At first, scholars didn't know what to make of it. Was it Jewish or Christian? Ancient or medieval? Original or derived? Their questions sparked something new, a scholarly rebellion. A full reassessment of what we thought we knew about the world that gave birth to Judaism and Christianity. In 1850, the German scholar August Dillmann published the first translation of Jubilees. He worked not from dusty ruins, but from Ethiopian manuscripts. His work opened the floodgates. Soon, versions of Jubilees appeared in Latin, English, French, and beyond. Each new translation brought more insight and more debate. Scholars around the world argued over where the book came from, when it was written, and what it truly meant. Dating Jubilees proved especially difficult. The book claims to be older than Genesis, dictated by angels directly to Moses. Yet its language, themes, and insights clearly reflect awareness of later historical moments. Scholars began tracking subtle clues. They examined references to events, analyzed shifts in vocabulary, and identified theological patterns that only emerged in specific eras. It was like trying to complete a puzzle, knowing that many pieces were still hidden. By the early 20th century, most researchers agreed on a probable origin, the 2nd century BC. This placed the creation of Jubilees in a pivotal era when Jewish identity was under intense pressure and active redefinition. The Maccabean revolt against Hellenistic rule had just succeeded. Multiple Jewish groups were now competing for influence, each offering their vision of what faithful living should truly look like. Jubilees, with its absolute rules and sweeping cosmic scope, wasn't a side note. it was part of this struggle. Then, in 1947, everything changed. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls transformed the conversation. Multiple copies of Jubilees were found at Qumran, proving both its antiquity and its major role in Second Temple Judaism. Carbon dating confirmed that Jubilees had circulated much earlier than many had previously believed. The scholarly world was forced to reconsider. This wasn't a marginal text. It was central, at least for some ancient Jews. New questions took center stage. Who authored this book? And why was it written in this form? Some scholars pointed to the book's priestly focus, suggesting it originated within temple circles. Others noticed clear similarities to apocalyptic literature and proposed connections to visionary sects on the fringes of Jewish society. Still others drew links to the emerging Pharisaic movement, with its detailed concern for applying Torah to every aspect of daily life. The debate over Jubilees' origins became part of a larger academic rebellion. Scholars began challenging older assumptions about ancient Judaism. For decades, mainstream thought had viewed early Jewish theology as a straight path leading to rabbinic Judaism. Jubilees shattered that illusion, revealing a messy, vibrant world of competing beliefs. By the close of the 20th century, Jubilees had gone from obscurity to prominence in the field of Second Temple studies. Entire conferences were devoted to its ideas. Dozens of dissertations explored its doctrines. New translations appeared again and again, each one striving to capture the unique cadence of its voice. A book once dismissed as a historical footnote had become essential for understanding the world that gave birth to both rabbinic Judaism and early Christianity. Perhaps the fiercest scholarly debate centered on what's now called pseudepigrapha, ancient works written under the names of revered figures. Jubilees claims to come from Moses, even though it was clearly written long after his lifetime. Some researchers dismissed such claims as fraud, but others argued that in the ancient world, authorship meant something else entirely. What mattered wasn't historical accuracy, but channeling the spiritual authority of a figure like Moses. To write in his name was to write in his voice, and to preserve his vision. Through all this scholarly wrestling, something extraordinary happened. Jubilees began to speak again. After centuries of silence, its sharp and meticulous voice, obsessed with timing, boundaries, and divine design, re-entered the global conversation. It offered a lens into the chaotic, fertile period when Jewish thought was still unfolding in multiple directions. Modern scholars now approach Jubilees with deeper sensitivity. They no longer see it as a theological anomaly. Instead, they recognize it as one of many vibrant voices within ancient Judaism. And in bringing Jubilees back into view, scholarship didn't just recover a forgotten text. It recovered a forgotten world. Deep within Jubilees lies a surprising thread, a hidden connection to another mysterious work, the Book of Enoch. Though both texts were excluded from most biblical canons, they share a rare intimacy of thought and language. They speak the same esoteric dialect, one of angels, cosmic laws, and secret celestial records. They tell overlapping stories of watchers, giants, and divine judgments. Together, they uncover a forgotten stream of Jewish thought that once ran strong and clear before being diverted or erased. In Genesis, Enoch is little more than a footnote, a man who walked with God and was no more. But in the Book of Enoch, that cryptic line becomes a soaring vision. Enoch becomes a cosmic traveler, a prophet of the skies. He witnesses the punishment of rebellious angels. He walks among the heavenly spheres. He returns bearing forbidden knowledge and future insight. Jubilees embraces this expanded myth and embeds it into its Genesis retelling. Here, Enoch takes center stage. He is not only the first to walk with God, he is the first to understand God's time. He becomes the original astronomer priest. He deciphers heaven's clock. He records divine patterns. He is, as Jubilees says, the first among men who learned writing, knowledge, and wisdom, and who recorded the signs of heaven by their months. This image of Enoch as divine scribe echoes throughout both Jubilees and the Book of Enoch. They also share a focus on a particular class of beings, the Watchers. These were angels, originally assigned to guide and protect humanity, but in both books, they fall from grace. They take human wives. Their children become giants. Violence and chaos spread across the earth. Genesis only hints at this story. Jubilees and Enoch make it the core reason why the flood became necessary. Together, these books describe a reality where angels and demons shape human destiny. They both name an angel, Azazel or Asael, who teaches humans dark knowledge. Metalwork, weaponry, cosmetics, and deceptive arts, skills that pull humanity away from innocence and into corruption. Another figure looms large in both texts, Mastema, part accuser, part tester, part tempter, a Satan-like force who challenges the faithful and sows discord at heaven's permission. But perhaps the most profound thread linking these books is their treatment of time. Time, in their vision, is not fluid. It is scripted. It is written in heaven's books long before it plays out on earth. Nothing unfolds by accident. Every moment is part of a pre-written design. This deterministic theology offers deep comfort that God is in control, but it also poses a stark challenge. Human freedom must somehow operate inside this cosmic script. Scholars now speak of Enochic Judaism to describe this worldview. It centers on cosmic dualism, revelation through angels, precise astronomy, and a sense of history unfolding by divine script. And this Enochic vision, preserved in both Jubilees and the Book of Enoch, diverges sharply from the Judaism that would later rise after the temple's fall. The temple calendar is not the final authority. It is subordinate to heaven's flawless and eternal timetable. And Moses, for all his stature, shares the stage with other divine revealers, most notably Enoch. This profound connection between Jubilees and the Book of Enoch opens up a wealth of fascinating questions. Did one text influence the other? Or did both draw from even older, now lost traditions? Could they have been written within the same visionary community? Scholars continue to debate these mysteries. But one thing remains clear. These writings emerge from a shared intellectual and spiritual world. A world where the secrets of heaven were not just protected, but offered to those wise enough to receive them. Both books express a deep reverence for an exquisitely ordered universe. Nothing is random, nothing misplaced. Everything has a purpose, and everything has its time. Angels in these texts are not mere messengers. They are divine administrators, cosmic officials entrusted with maintaining harmony and enforcing divine law. Their demons, likewise, aren't chaotic forces of whimsy. They are systematic disruptors, working with precision to unravel heaven's order. And humans? They are not simply moral actors. They are participants in a drama written before time began, fulfilling roles etched in celestial ink. This intricate vision of cosmic design helps explain why both Jubilees and Enoch eventually fell out of favor. As Rabbinic Judaism solidified its boundaries and early Christianity drew its theological lines, texts filled with elaborate angelology, strict determinism, and revelations beyond the Torah were pushed to the margins. Yet they were never entirely silenced. Jubilees and Enoch survived. In the caves of Qumran, in the traditions of Ethiopia, in whispered echoes of mystical movements. Their ideas lived on in apocalyptic visions, in folklore about angels and demons, and in the quiet longing of those drawn to a more mystical view of time and history. Today, reading these two books side by side revives that ancient worldview. Together, they help us glimpse a sacred architecture behind history, a pattern where celestial beings influence human events, and the universe itself follows a divine rhythm. They remind us that the world which birthed both Judaism and Christianity was rich with diversity and alive with competing spiritual ideas. When the first followers of Jesus began recording his life and message, they weren't building something from scratch. They were joining an ancient conversation. Though the Gospel writers never cite Jubilees directly, traces of its themes appear throughout their narratives, like gentle echoes reverberating through sacred time. Jubilees' obsession with divine timing, angelic governance, and fulfillment of heavenly plans resonates in many Gospel passages. In Matthew's opening, a genealogy arranged in 3 sets of 14 generations reveals not just a family lineage, but a sacred chronology pointing to Jesus as the climax of divine history. It echoes Jubilees' careful placement of every event within a cosmic calendar. Luke's Gospel begins with angelic appearances, Gabriel visiting Zechariah and Mary, setting in motion a series of divinely scheduled events. Angels continue to appear throughout the story, guiding and proclaiming, just as they do in Jubilees where they oversee sacred history. Even the gospel temptation narratives carry familiar tones. Jesus is led into the wilderness and tested by Satan. In Jubilees, that role belongs to Mastema, an accuser and adversary, one who seeks to prove the unworthiness of humanity. Both texts cast spiritual opposition as a cosmic test, not just a personal struggle. John's Gospel opens with a prologue about the Word, the Logos that was present before creation, through whom all things were made. While steeped in Hellenistic philosophy, this too aligns with Jubilees' reverence for divine speech and its pre-Genesis framework. Jesus' teachings about the Sabbath also reflect ongoing debates about what Sabbath truly means. When he says, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath," he speaks into a centuries-old discussion that Jubilees addressed in detail through its strict Sabbath laws. And whenever the Gospels show Jesus engaging in festivals, Passover, tabernacles, dedication, they tap into the sacred timing so vital to the worldview of Jubilees. John's frequent references to exact feast days mirror Jubilees' meticulous tracking of holy time. Even the idea that Jesus fulfilled Scripture resonates deeply, just as Jubilees presents every major event as unfolding from a divine script, written on heavenly tablets long before time began. The Gospels portray Christ's life as the fulfillment of divine prophecy. Of course, these similarities don't mean the Gospel authors were directly quoting Jubilees. Rather, both traditions drew from the same sacred atmosphere, one rich with ideas about divine timing, sacred law, and cosmic destiny. Early Christianity didn't abandon Jewish thought. It reshaped it. The first believers in Jesus were not rebels against tradition, but interpreters of it, casting old truths in new light. Ideas central to Jubilees flowed into the Gospels, sometimes transformed, sometimes echoed. They revealed just how interconnected ancient faith communities truly were. Religious identity in that era wasn't sealed off by rigid walls. Ideas flowed, revised, reshaped, reframed. The Gospel writers were not inventing in isolation. They were participating in a shared search for meaning. For today's reader, these connections open new doors. They invite us to see the Gospels not as breakaways, but as part of a larger, vibrant stream of Jewish tradition. And they allow Jubilees to take its place once again as a guide to a lost spiritual world, one where angels walk among us, where time is sacred, and where the pattern of the stars holds the shape of our destiny. Perhaps the deepest link between the Gospels and Jubilees is this. Both believe that time is not chaos, but choreography, that behind history's confusion lies order, that behind every moment, there's a hand still writing. In a world that feels increasingly disordered, where truth shifts and tradition erodes, some have turned to a forgotten book for clarity. Jubilees has reemerged among small, scattered communities, people seeking a clear path, a divine rhythm, a way to live not by modern chaos, but by celestial design. What draws them to this ancient text isn't just nostalgia or novelty. It's the precision. Jubilees offers something rare among sacred writings: specificity. It doesn't hint or generalize. It provides exact dates, definitive rules, and a calendar traced directly to heaven. In a time when certainty feels elusive, Jubilees speaks with unwavering authority. It maps all of history, from creation to the end of days, according to a schedule revealed to Moses on Sinai. Many of these believers have rebuilt their lives around the 364-day solar calendar. They reject our modern reckoning of time, seeing it as a distortion. Instead, they follow the sacred week, 52 perfectly structured cycles of 7 days, where each Sabbath, each feast, each holy moment flows in step with the sun. To them, the moon introduces confusion, a wandering measure that pulls humanity off course. One community leader put it simply: the world wants you lost in time, but God wants you synchronized with heaven. These groups often live apart from the noise of cities. They build homesteads in remote places, raising children by ancient codes, teaching them to watch not only the weather, but the stars, reading constellations not as distant spheres of gas, but as messages written in skyscript by the Creator's own hand. But more than its rules, it's the warnings that stir their devotion. Jubilees speaks of how humanity has drifted, step by step, from the order God originally established. It tells of angels recording every deviation, every missed feast, every forgotten Sabbath. For those who believe the modern world has forsaken the sacred, these words ring with undeniable truth. Some communities go even further. They track global events, wars, disasters, social unrest, and line them up with Jubilee's prophetic framework. To them, nothing is coincidence. History unfolds as foretold. Online, these groups have found one another. Through forums, encrypted chats, and YouTube channels, they share insights, decode patterns, and teach one another how to return to God's calendar. Knowledge once whispered in isolation now spreads across continents. Not all who follow Jubilees live off-grid. Many blend into ordinary society, working regular jobs, living in suburbs, yet quietly observing different holidays, following dietary restrictions linked to sacred timing, and ordering their private lives by a rhythm unseen. From the outside, they appear like anyone else. But inside, they measure time not by the world's clocks, but by heaven's rotations. Critics have voiced concern. They see danger in the book's rigidity and absolutism. They worry when charismatic leaders claim authority over God's timeline, especially when failed prophecies lead to real-world devastation. Some groups have predicted end times that never came, leaving behind shattered faith and wounded hearts. Yet for many who embrace this path, the result is not fear but peace. They describe their lives as anchored, each day infused with meaning, each action aligned with something greater. Even daily routines, eating, resting, working, become sacred acts when practiced according to divine instruction. One woman, raised in such a community, recalled, "We always knew exactly who we were and where we fit in God's plan. The outside world seemed to drift, constantly changing the rules. But we had certainty. At its core, the renewed interest in Jubilees reflects a longing for meaning. In an age of distraction and rapid change, Jubilees offers an ancient alternative. A world with purpose, a rhythm that never breaks, a calendar heaven never forgets. Whether seen as fringe movements or keepers of forgotten wisdom, these communities remind us of the enduring power of sacred texts. Jubilees, once lost to time, is once again shaping human lives, proving that sacred words never truly disappear. They wait in silence until hearts are ready to listen. Now imagine the universe as a perfectly balanced timepiece, its gears turning in seamless order, stars sweeping across the sky, seasons arriving right on schedule, birth and death following their ancient dance. At the center of this cosmic mechanism stands the watchmaker, the god of Jubilees. This is not the distant architect who sets creation in motion and walks away, nor is it the tempestuous deity who lashes out in anger. The God revealed in Jubilees is something else entirely. He is the keeper of time, the one who counts every sunrise and sunset, the one who assigns meaning to every moment. In Genesis, God creates by speaking, "Let there be light." But in Jubilees, God not only creates, he schedules. Everything enters existence at its appointed hour. Animals, plants, stars, humans, each arriving on cue, according to a calendar etched on heavenly tablets before time began. For thus it is engraved and ordained on the heavenly tablets. This phrase repeats again and again. These tablets, mentioned more than 30 times, contain the divine blueprint. Not just what will happen, but precisely when it must happen. What kind of God marks time with such precision? What does it mean to worship a deity who tracks the calendar as closely as he tracks the heart? For the writers of Jubilees, that kind of precision wasn't mechanical, it was comforting. In a world where kings rose and fell, where storms ruined crops and empires waged war, the belief that someone was keeping perfect time brought peace. It meant that suffering had a season, it had a place, and it had an end. But stray from that schedule, and the consequences ripple outward. Jubilees warns, keeping holy days at the wrong time isn't just a clerical error, it's a cosmic fracture. To worship on the wrong date is to live in dissonance with the Creator's rhythm. He who changes the days, the angel warns, will be cut off. The stakes aren't theological, they're existential. To follow the wrong calendar is to step outside the reality God ordained. And yet this timekeeping God is not cold or distant. He walks beside Adam in Eden, He visits Abraham beneath the stars. He speaks with Noah, with Moses, with those he chooses. He makes promises, covenants that stretch across centuries. The God of Jubilees blends intimacy with order. He is both near and exacting, both loving and law-giving. He is the architect of human destiny and the companion of human lives. To believe in such a God is to live differently, to rise each morning not to an alarm clock, but to an appointment marked in the divine ledger. Every sunrise becomes sacred. Every ordinary act carries eternal weight. Even today, many find solace in spiritual rhythms. The 5 daily prayers, the Sabbath pause, the sacred calendar of feasts and fasts. These aren't just rituals. They are tethers, linking the chaos of modern life to the stillness of divine order. While our world teaches us that time is money, Jubilees teaches us that time is sacred, not something to be spent, but something to be honored. Each day is not merely another tick of the clock. It is a divine creation, as real, as holy, and as carefully made as the stars themselves. And perhaps that's why this vision, ancient though it is, continues to speak to us. Because somewhere inside, we all long to believe that every moment matters. That time isn't slipping through our fingers, but carrying us towards something greater. Something written in light before the world began. The ticking of the clock, the changing of seasons, and even the quiet rhythm of our breath, all hint at an order beyond human invention. The Book of Jubilees doesn't invent that order, it names it. It assigns it meaning. It attributes it to a God who not only brings the universe into being, but who governs every moment with precise intention. This is a God who not only creates time, but keeps it. And the angels are watching. Tonight, if you lift your eyes to the sky, you're not merely stargazing. According to Jubilees, something, or rather, someone, is gazing back. The heavens are alive with watchers, celestial beings assigned to every nation, every natural element, every human action. They remain invisible, yet utterly present, recording our deeds in silence. This vast network of angelic surveillance is one of Jubilees' most startling ideas. Unlike Genesis, where angels rarely appear, Jubilees envisions a universe teeming with spiritual beings. These aren't just heavenly messengers. They are managers of creation, stewards of nature, and perhaps most unsettling of all, divine spies. The text tells us that spirits were appointed over all things: fire, wind, clouds, snow, darkness, hail, frost, even the rumble of thunder. Every aspect of the world is guided by an angelic hand. Nature, in this vision, is not an automated system but a living matrix, overseen by conscious intelligence. And these watchers don't stop at nature, they watch us. Each good deed, every failure, each quiet rebellion against God's will is written down in their books. Nothing escapes notice. Their reports go straight to heaven. This creates a spiritual surveillance network that covers the entire globe. For those reading this text in ancient times, this worldview inspired both reassurance and dread. Comfort in knowing the universe wasn't chaos. It was governed, attended to. But fear, too, in realizing that no moment was private, no act unobserved. Every sin had a witness. But these angels aren't all passive. Some are helpers. When Abraham walks away from idols, angels lead him forward. When Noah receives the impossible task of building the ark, it is heavenly beings who guide his hands. In the world of Jubilees, the faithful never walk alone. Yet other angels work against them. Chief among these is Mastema, Jubilees' counterpart to Satan. Unlike the serpent who slinks quietly into Genesis, Mastema is bold and direct. He steps forward, demanding permission to test humanity. He insists that faith must be proven in adversity. What unfolds is not a moral garden, but a battlefield, where angels of light clash with angels of darkness, and human souls stand caught in the middle. In such a world, free will becomes a complicated concept. If every action is watched, and every temptation engineered by dark forces, how free are our choices? Jubilees doesn't resolve this tension entirely, but it does suggest that our decisions matter precisely because they are observed, measured, and remembered. In this way, the book feels uncannily modern. We now live amid cameras, trackers, biometric scans, and endless data collection. Our smartphones log every movement. Our clicks and searches build profiles. Privacy is elusive. And yet, thousands of years ago, Jubilees imagined a similarly watched world. Only the watchers weren't machines. They were angels. Some scholars see in this a form of spiritual control. If people believe invisible eyes are always watching, they may behave more righteously, even in solitude. In this reading, angels become a kind of divine policing system, more efficient, more terrifying, and more pervasive than any human authority. The heavenly tablets in which all things are written do more than document, they determine. In such a vision, people don't write their stories, they perform a script laid out in advance. And yet, for many believers, that isn't frightening. It's comforting, because the angels aren't just watching to catch failures. They're there to guide, to protect, and to carry our longings upward. Jubilees speaks of the highest angelic orders, the angels of the presence and of sanctification. These beings don't just record sin. They carry human prayers into the divine court, ensuring that even the quietest plea is heard. This tension between guidance and surveillance, between comfort and control, gives Jubilees its distinctive spiritual tone. Its world is more structured, more crowded, and more intimately observed than Genesis. Whether that brings peace or anxiety depends on one's feelings about being seen. And in this modern era of privacy fears and digital footprints, the message of Jubilees might speak louder than ever. Nothing is hidden. Every act has a witness. Whether that is a warning or a reassurance is up to you. The angels are watching. How does that make you feel? In time, it doesn't merely pass. Not in the world of Jubilees. Time is a test. Every sunrise presents a spiritual decision. Will we live in sync with heaven's rhythm, or drift into our own? Will we observe God's calendar, or improvise our own version of time? These aren't just minor scheduling matters. They are crossroads of faith. In this view, ordinary days become sacred markers. Tuesday is not just a work day. It's the third day of creation's weekly cycle. A full moon isn't just beautiful. It's a temptation, inviting the unfaithful to follow the lunar calendar rather than the divine solar one. For the writers of Jubilees, calendar choices carry eternal consequences. To count time wrongly is to dwell in a false reality, one where angels may not be able to protect you. The stakes are spiritual. The text warns, there will be those who follow the moon, and they will disturb the seasons, shorten the years, and break the sacred order. This isn't about astronomy, it's about alignment, about loyalty. Keeping the correct calendar isn't just obedience, it's proof of belief. And failing to do so marks one as having turned from divine order. It's a line that separates the faithful from the compromised. This produces a powerful kind of spirituality, one defined by constant awareness. Every sunset, every Sabbath, every appointed festival becomes a chance to show devotion. Time itself becomes a discipline. Imagine waking up each morning knowing that this day, like all days, has already been written into the heavenly tablets. How you live it, whether you honor its purpose, matters. Each properly observed day pulls you into angelic harmony. Each misaligned one nudges you toward disorder. For many, this structure brings deep comfort. Time becomes sacred. Routine becomes ritual. Human life finds meaning through its connection to eternal patterns. Time is not just endured, it is participated in. But from a modern psychological perspective, a different reading arises. One that sees the potential for anxiety, for perfectionism. When every day is a pass/fail exam, when salvation hangs on observing the right day in the right way, where, then, is grace? Jubilees doesn't entirely ignore this fear. It acknowledges that even the patriarchs stumbled. Abraham faltered. Jacob made mistakes. And yet, they were not discarded. They were given space to learn, to grow. Time tests us, yes, but it also teaches. And it forgives. This balance between divine order and human frailty gives Jubilees its unique depth. Time, in its pages, becomes both a sacred gift and a demanding burden. It is both the stage and the trial, a blessing and a test. The weight of constant spiritual testing presses down when every single day feels like a pass or fail exam of your soul. When salvation hinges on calendar keeping, where is there space left for grace? What becomes of those who stray unintentionally, who make honest mistakes despite sincere devotion? The Book of Jubilees doesn't ignore these anxieties completely. It acknowledges human frailty and imperfection, even while it maintains the unyielding standards of divine expectation. In its stories, the patriarchs falter, stumble, and fall short, yet they are not abandoned. They are given second chances. Time, in Jubilees, does not only expose failure, it also becomes a teacher. It tests, yes, but it also instructs, offering the faithful opportunities to grow, to learn, and to realign. This tension between the immovable cosmic order and the fragile imperfection of human beings infuses the text with its distinctive spiritual texture. Time is framed not just as a test, but also as a gift. It's both a heavy burden and a sacred offering, both a path to blessing and a crucible of trial. Perhaps that duality is why the book resonated so powerfully with communities under cultural pressure. For Jewish groups navigating life under Greek or Roman dominance, where foreign calendars intruded upon sacred cycles and sought to overwrite tradition, Jubilees gave them more than ritual instructions. It offered them cosmic reassurance. Their way of marking time wasn't merely a cultural preference, it was heaven's rhythm itself. To defend the calendar was to defend reality as God had ordained it. Many world religions share this idea of time as spiritual terrain. Whether in Buddhist mindfulness practice, Islamic prayer intervals, Jewish Sabbath rest, or the rhythms of the Christian liturgical year, sacred time becomes the environment in which the soul grows. These frameworks elevate ordinary time into holy terrain, transforming the ticking of hours into soul-forming opportunities. The Book of Jubilees amplifies this insight to a cosmic scale. Time doesn't just train our attention or call for discipline. It tests our place in God's very design. Every tick of the divine clock becomes a beat in the rhythm of faith. Whether or not we fully accept this worldview, Jubilees confronts us with a powerful reminder. The way we spend our days matters. Time isn't a river that merely flows past us. It's a container we can fill with intention and meaning. Each moment opens up a choice that shapes the people we are becoming. In an age obsessed with optimizing schedules, saving time, spending time, even killing time, Jubilees suggests something entirely different: sanctifying time, making it holy, measuring our days not by how much we get done, but by how closely we walk in rhythm with something greater. What if Jubilees was right? As the sun sinks below the horizon, closing out another day, the Book of Jubilees would tell us this isn't simply nature at work. It's a page turning in heaven's cosmic ledger. Another entry marked. Another step toward the final unfolding of time's divine story. We've come far with this ancient text, walked among its strange angels, tracked its intricate timelines, and glimpsed its vision of a universe ticking in perfect synchronicity. Now, we arrive at a moment for stillness, for inward reflection. What if Jubilees wasn't right in every specific, the uncompromising calendar, the severe judgments, but right in its deepest conviction? That time doesn't just flow, but unfolds according to purpose. That history isn't random, but directed. That our days fall into patterns too grand for us to invent, but not beyond our ability to perceive. Modern science assures us the universe runs according to fixed laws: gravity, electromagnetism, atomic bonds. But is it such a stretch to imagine these physical laws mirror deeper spiritual truths? That time, like the cosmos, may be operating from a script authored at the dawn of all things? For the writers of Jubilees, the world was not only structured physically, it had moral and spiritual logic. Events didn't occur arbitrarily, but fulfilled ancient, sacred purposes. Human lives weren't meaningless episodes in an endless loop. They were roles in a divine narrative. History wasn't chaos. It was a story with a beginning, a middle, and an intended end. This vision offers consolation in a time of uncertainty. When violence erupts, when suffering seems unexplainable, Jubilees whispers, there is a plan. We may not see its full shape. We may not comprehend its detours and dark valleys. But the story has an author, and the author knows the ending. Of course, such comfort brings its own dilemmas. If time runs along tracks laid by divine will, what room is there for freedom? If angels chronicle our every act in books stored on high, held to expectations written long ago, how much genuine choice do we possess? Jubilees doesn't fully unravel this paradox. It shows humans making meaningful decisions, even as those decisions fulfill ancient prophecies. Somehow, free will and divine destiny coexist in its pages, though the scale tips heavily toward destiny. Maybe the most vital question isn't whether time has a script, but who wrote that script, and whether it bends, evolves, allows for improvisation. Even if cosmic patterns hold sway, could they leave space for spontaneity, for creativity, for the surprises of human heart and mind? Many modern readers try to find this middle ground. They believe God sets the direction of time, but leaves space for us to choose the path within that arc. They envision a future that holds both promise and unpredictability, divine plans realized through the unfolding dance of human freedom. So what might we gain from taking Jubilees seriously, not in every literal detail, but in spirit? Perhaps we gain a new lens through which to find meaning in life's everyday moments. Perhaps it helps us endure randomness with patience and carry hope that seemingly scattered events will one day arrange themselves into a beautiful picture, pieces falling into place in retrospect. Jubilees also critiques our modern view of time. We treat time like currency, something to hoard or waste, to spend efficiently, to race against. But this ancient book reframes time as revelation. Every moment isn't a commodity, it's a window into the deep design of the world. This idea reshapes our perception of life. Monday morning gridlock becomes more than frustration, it's part of a mysterious pattern. A child's birthday becomes more than a marker of age, it's a moment in cosmic time. Every season, every sunset, every heartbeat echoes with rhythms set at the beginning. Whether we fully accept the vision of Jubilees or keep it at arm's length, its questions echo beyond the bounds of belief. Does history move with purpose? Are there patterns deeper than what we make? Does time reveal something higher than itself? These are not just theological questions. They are human ones. They press at the edges of our identity. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Do our fleeting lives matter in the vast unfolding of the universe? Perhaps that's why Jubilees endured, even after being pushed to the margins. Its vision speaks to a longing that persists, a hunger to believe that time matters, that our days mean something, that behind the apparent chaos, order remains. And so, the sun will rise again tomorrow, just as it always has, following the rhythm Jubilees insists was fixed from the first week of creation. And maybe, as we watch it rise, we too might pause. What if this ancient book glimpsed something real, something true, about the deeper fabric of time? What if our days unfold not by accident, but as lines in a story written long ago? And maybe, just maybe, the real question isn't what Jubilees got wrong, but what it got to right.